I think my heart now beats for three. Obsessed and so obscure. You and me and Christopher Lee. Obsessed and so obscure. I think my heart now beats for three. Obsessed and so obscure.
Hello everyone and welcome to our 22nd episode of Obsessed and So Obscure. Now, I know they don't need an introduction, but I'm going to introduce them anyways. We have Jessie.
Hello.
And Courtney.
Hi.
We know it's been a minute, but we're back and we've got really exciting news. While we were working on our Simplicity episode, Acid Jazz was extremely kind and sent us an advance copy of Heard Noises so we could start working on it and get this episode to you as quickly as possible. Obviously, we couldn't wait to dive into it, so we bumped this episode up the queue. Don't worry though, Simplicity is still coming soon.
And big thanks to Acid Jazz for sharing this music.
Yes, thank you so much. Very appreciated. As always, we start with the release info, and this one has a lot. There are so many variations and formats. First and foremost, there is a signed test pressing. It's a little uncertain how many copies there are. Originally, it said 70, but now it looks like it's up to 125 copies, right, Courtney?
Yeah, that number gradually kind
Increased.
of bumped up as, I'm assuming just as demand increased and profit increased for Acid Jazz. I think it went from 70 to 80 to 100, and as of this recording, 125 is where they landed.
Initially, they showed that the label was signed, but it looks like it's the generic test pressing sleeve that's signed, but still signed anyway. There is a limited edition gatefold psychedelic swirl, Acid Jazz exclusive. The swirl, it's kind of a peach color with some purple, some cream colors in it. It's really cool. I wish I had it. Still don't have it. This is kind of the first episode where we're going in with a little bit of a handicap because we ordered day one and we don't have our stuff yet. So we're going by pictures online. It looks amazing.
The back of the gatefold, and I believe this is true in the CD as well, also has kind of a psychedelic painting by Matt. So I know there's been a lot of demand for more of Matt's artwork on his albums as we've gotten on a few of his releases, and we do get a peek of that on the back cover.
Yes, very good point. The gatefold has the full photo of the scene with all of Matt's little trinkets and stuff in it. Something else to note about these album sleeves, the other ones that are not gatefold are a slightly different photo than the inside of the gatefold that shows all of Matt's little objects and stuff. I noticed this morning, because I just got this Maelstrom Blue in the mail overnight, the photo is taken from a different vantage point. Obviously, I think just to maximize the space on the back of the album cover, they didn't have that full two panels to work with. But also, in addition to that, it's slightly different as far as the objects go. His fangs are moved more to the front. The couch in the photo in the gatefold has a silver ring sitting on the couch, and that's not there on this one. Just some of the objects are moved around a little bit, but I thought it was interesting that some of the objects were taken out also. There's a stack of cassette tapes in the gatefold one. I could only see 2, so I don't know if those were added to this photo. There's also like a can of something sitting behind the staircase, which I cannot make out, but you can't see that in the other photos that I'm aware of. I haven't had a chance to really inspect it because I'm only working on photographs, but I actually think from the pattern on the can, I think it's whatever it is that's on the coaster.
It's tartan something.
Tartan something. Yeah, it looks like it's the same thing. So probably a beer. I would imagine a Scottish beer. Once we get the photo, the actual physical release, we'll post something on our socials about what each little item is that we can pinpoint. You know, on first glance, there's the London bus that says London Dungeon on it. I actually have this exact same London double-decker bus. Probably everybody that's ever visited London has it, but I've had it since I was a little kid. We went there for the first time when I was like 7 years old, not even 7 years old, and I still have it. It's on my desk.
The other thing that I found interesting about this photo, and really the cover photo too, is that this photography was done by Matt on his phone, apparently. He took this tableau, and the cover photo is a selfie right up his nose. I would love to see the outtakes from that.
Yeah, thank goodness for that mustache.
Thank goodness for the mustache. It's a great photo.
It is.
And it was all over the album promo too. But yeah, that was right off his iPhone.
He's looking a little Jesus-like in this photo.
Right.
Yes.
A little
A
Messiah-esque.
little, yeah.
I like it. I like the color of
Works
it
for him.
too.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. There is a sky blue LP that's being sold by Acid Jazz and other outlets in the UK and in the United States, actually. There's a Rough Trade Marble Serenity Blue edition that was limited to 500. These are the ones that were being signed by Matt at the Rough Trade Q&As that he's currently on tour doing in the UK. There is a North American exclusive Maelstrom Blue edition, and there was absolutely no information about this one. There were no pictures, nothing. So yesterday I took a chance and I just ordered one from Amazon. So at least I'd have some physical copy available when we did this episode. And I figured if it's not any different than the sky blue that's being sold by Acid Jazz, then I could just return it. But it is different. It's kind of like a light turquoise translucent swirl. I have a black slip mat on my turntable, so when you put it on the slip mat, it's kind of a bright blue. It's very pretty. It's a little pearlescent. Really cool. What else?
I found it so interesting that Acid Jazz really promoted this release very heavily. I've received emails about it every day for the past 6 weeks, and they never mentioned the Maelstrom Blue.
Right.
We were really wondering if it even existed, if it was discontinued, or if there was some sort of production delay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just like a big question mark for a while there.
Yeah, and it was being advertised Maelstrom Blue on Target and
Amazon
as the North American exclusive. And that's why I just really wasn't sure when I ordered it. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. But we did start to see photos in US record stores pop up with the sticker that said exclusive Maelstrom Blue. So we knew for sure that something existed that was North American exclusive, but we weren't sure about the color. So when I ordered from Amazon, there was a difference. You could get the UK import or you could get the US one. And I've never seen that before from Amazon. There's another edition that came, I don't know who's being sold by.
The holographic print was manufactured, as far as we can tell, exclusively to recordstore.co.uk. I have corresponded with Acid Jazz regarding the hologram, and they've confirmed that this is a third-party release. It's not manufactured by Acid Jazz. It is very cool looking.
It is, and that one comes with the sky blue vinyl.
Yes.
And they're being numbered. I think that was supposed to be a limited edition of 500, but the ones that we've seen so far are numbered 180. So I don't know why, but yeah.
It's worth noting there was not a standard black release for this album. The standard release is the sky blue. I'm assuming that just people love colored vinyl and there wasn't a whole lot of demand for black on his past releases, and so they just skipped that entirely and went to the blue, which is gorgeous.
Which is a very good point, because I think the only other time that they did that is with the Small Hours. The standard release was green. It was only available on green. There was no black option. There is now, but there wasn't then. I think that covers all of the vinyl, and it is also on CD and cassette. There's also an HMV exclusive CD, which has 2 bonus tracks. So unfortunately, HMV does not ship to the United States. However, we do have those bonus tracks because we have friends. And lastly, there is an 8-track. Yes.
Yes.
An 8-track. There are only 45 of them sold. There's only 50 in existence.
Crazy.
And it was apparently from the Q&A, we've been told that Matt said it was meant to be a joke, that he mentioned it just to rile up Eddie Pillar, who is the the founder of Acid Jazz, just as like another variant to offer, and lo and behold,
it worked.
Yeah.
Apparently Acid Jazz tracked down the only 8-track manufacturer in North America, possibly the only one in the world right now, as far as we can tell. But it's a manufacturer called Kate's Track Shack, or KTS Productions, based out of Denton, Texas, which is a very fun little college town close to my heart. Used to go there all the time in my younger days. But yeah, when I initially saw the promo video, I thought it was a joke, and now I've got one coming to me. Because apparently I'll just buy anything with Matt's name on it.
I drew the line in the sand when it came to 8-track. There's no means to play it. There's really, why would you want to? 8-track is a horrible format. It wasn't good when it was new, and it's obsolete. I think it was meant to be, well, a joke, obviously, but I think it's just a collector thing, which is fine. That's totally cool. I do have FOMO, but I drew a line in the sand and I said, I am not buying an 8-track. So there's that.
You have to somewhere. It's so funny. Before we started recording this morning, I drew a line at color variants. Just I have one colored release of each album, and then I found a few, or really Jesse found a few for me where the price was right, and now I've got a few variants, and now I'm eyeing more. It's a slippery slope.
It is a very slippery slope. And I kind of feel like at this point, Acid Jazz may be really aware of that because they've exploited
there are 7
it.
different versions of this album.
They exploited it. It's like the new Taylor Swift. Isn't there like 15,000 different variants of every Taylor Swift?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
There are, just as there have been on most of Matt's albums, there are acknowledgments on the back. A lot of the same people that he's acknowledged before, friends of his who work for his label, and the elderberries, who presumably are his parents. He last thanked the elderberries all the way back on Opium, which I found hilarious there, and the elderberries are back.
It was only mentioned, though, as we figured out, because as soon as I saw the elderberries, I said, please tell me that's what he calls his parents, because that is absolutely hilarious and adorable. Funny. Yeah. And Courtney, you said he acknowledged them on Opium, and I'm like, wait, what? No, he didn't. I totally would have remembered that. But it's only on the CD.
Oh. In addition to the release itself, Acid Jazz, according to them, due to just overwhelming demand, released a 7-inch version of the first single from this album, I Got a Limit, with a David Arnold remix of Summer Sun from The Blue Elephant. Really interesting remix. Perhaps we'll get to that later. We're not going to dive into it here, but it's well worth seeking out, well worth ordering that 7-inch if you're a Matt completist. Really interesting take on that track.
The musicians and guests that Matt featured on this album, Craig Blundell did drums and percussion. He also featured Natasha Lyonne on the vocals of I Entered As I Came. Eric D. Johnson from the Shins and the Fruit Bats, he's collaborated with Matt before. He was on acoustic guitar, auto harp, and backing vocals on Why on Fire, To Live for What Once Was, as well as Snakes Will Slide. And then Phil Scragg, who is a longtime collaborator and of course friend of the show. He did lap steel guitar on To Live for What Once Was and Snakes Will Slide. And then of course we have Rosie McDermott, who has featured on other albums before, and she did vocals, some background vocals on Sky High. And then of course Kitty Liv, who did the vocals on I Got a Limit.
Throughout the album in the background, we hear the S Club 60s choir featuring Matt's mom. He was quoted in one of the reviews of the album saying, anytime you hear an unsettling choir, that's them. Love that. Yeah. Love that he put his mom on the album, and they sound great.
They do.
And the name makes me smile, the S Club 60s. That's fun. I can only assume it's a ripoff of the S Club 7, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I like it. Delightful.
And then later we have Dominic Glover on trumpets and trombone on Sky High, as well as Andrew Ross on saxophones on Sky High. And then Ben Castle does a saxophone solo on Sky High.
Ben Castle has been another longtime collaborator, I believe, since Kill the Wolf.
As far as Matt goes, this might take a while. Obviously vocals, and then acoustic guitar, Nashville guitar, electric and bass guitar. He plays the Hammond, Vox, Farfisa, Gibson, Eminent, and Morgan organs. There is the acoustic and Wurlitzer pianos, the Mellotron M4000, Mini Moog, Moog 1, Yamaha CS60, Nordwave 2, and ARP 2600 synthesizers, as well as the glockenspiel and the xylophone.
I find it hilarious that he always credits himself on the glockenspiel and the xylophone. Like, well, I get the thoroughness.
You do hear a lot of both of those. I can't distinguish between the two because they're similar. You play them similarly and they sound similar. I'm sure they have different tones and that's why they're different.
Yeah.
I don't know if like maybe the glockenspiel is...
I think the glockenspiel is metal and the xylophone is wooden or vice versa.
I was just going to say that. I wonder if that's what the difference is. No, I think you're right. And I don't know if... I think maybe the glockenspiel has more of a bell-like sound and the xylophone has more of a hollow sound to it. I really don't know. You want to jump into some interviews?
Matt didn't do a whole lot of interviews promoting this album. He didn't for simplicity either. Going back a few years to The Blue Elephant, he did tons of press, but it just seems like for whatever reasons, he's made the choice to cut back on that. He did do a couple of interviews the day of the album release, the 24th. And a few days before the album, on the 20th, he did a live interview on his friend Steve Furst and Martin Green's show, appropriately called The Steve Martin Show, on Soho Radio. Steve Furst was kind enough to allow us to use the audio from this interview. So here it goes. Here's Matt's take on Heard Noises.
Where did you write this one?
This was written all over the place. It was written, bits were written in Toronto, bits were written in Bedfordshire, in London.
Do you find it easier on the road writing?
No.
You
can only, I mean, for me, I can only really sort of tweak stuff on the road. I can't do anything, full scale.
You don't sit there with the guitar going, no, I've
done that, but everything I've done doing that, I've not used.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why.
Yeah, I think because it's half-assed and your brain's somewhere else.
So you prefer to write in the studio?
Well, because if I'm hired for a job, then the majority of the brain's on that.
Even if you've got 2 days off shooting, you're still not in that zone.
Yeah, it's difficult to get back into all that.
In terms of how you approach it with a blank sheet of paper, going, okay, well, this is album 10. Is there a conscious shift to go, right, I need to do something sonically different with this one?
Yeah, there's always a sort of manifesto, but with this one there wasn't. I just didn't have any sort of rules or regs. I just got on with it.
Does that make it easier because the parameters are kind of not there?
This time it did.
Right.
Well, no, and then sometimes it doesn't, because I did an album a few years ago called Phantom Birds, where I wasn't allowed to use any synths, or anything electronic.
You weren't allowed, that self-imposed rule.
Yeah, and that made things easier because you knew exactly what you couldn't do, and you didn't have sort of too many options. This one, I can do whatever I liked, and I thought that would be a problem because there'd be too many options, but they, sort of turned out not to be that way.
And you got many synths as well. I'm surprised that there was a kind of, I will not use...
Too many.
Yeah. It's a habit that never really stops either, is it? It's So when you approached starting this album, and you sort of... You say, that's it, no, there are no rules, there are no fixed parameters.
Yeah.
Do you start with is there a theme that you did start with that you think...
No.
Lyrically a theme or a song theme?
No.
No.
I mean, there ended up being a lot of sort of supernatural stuff, but that was, I don't know why that was.
Let's jump in. Matt, the album is called?
Heard Noises.
There you go. See, I thought that was the theme, that it was a kind of overheard...
well, it is sort of. I mean, like I say, it's
or
about
musical
supernatural. You can't tell what, for me, you can't tell what your album's called unless, until you've finished all the songs.
Yeah, okay.
Then that, for me, tells you what the theme of the album is and what it's called. So all of them had something in common. In this case, it was hearing voices of some kind.
Right, okay. Often your own.
Yeah, whether they were supernatural from a distance or whatever. That seemed to be like a running theme.
Right.
So I could only call the album something like that.
Okay.
We've got a few clips from this interview, so we'll be sharing more later on. Meanwhile, here's a bit more background on the album from Luxury London, published January 23rd. With Heard Noises, however, Barry is mixing things up. Having previously followed a manifesto, which prescribed a specific concept or sound when making an album, Barry compares this process to a painter who only allows himself to use 4 colors. Now he has given himself the full palette to play with. That kind of discipline pushes you to do things that you wouldn't have done before. That can be interesting if you give yourself restrictions, he explains. But with Heard Noises, I didn't do that. I did whatever I wanted, regardless of style or genre. The result is Barry's most personal album to date, encapsulated by back cover artwork featuring a table laid with personal items, which represent the many facets of his life. Among them are Laszlo Cravensworth's teeth from What We Do in the Shadows, the spin-off sitcom of Taika Waititi's hugely popular vampire movie, which recently ended after 6 seasons. Barry asserts that he doesn't usually mix his acting and music careers, But What We Do in the Shadows was such a big part of his life that it had an impact on everything else. It needs to be noted, not in loads of detail, but that was that. Here's the evidence and let's get on to the next thing, he explains. I'm not a nostalgic man. I don't ever look back at old stuff. Once I've done something, I tend to lose interest and can only think about the next thing. Which, love you, Matt, but I'm going to call bullshit on for a lot of reasons that we won't get into, but especially because he told the audience during one of his recent Q&As that he actually tweaked the CD and digital versions of this album after finishing it. And so the digital album is slightly different than the vinyl.
I think you'd have to really listen back to back to hear any changes. If anything is even noticeable to us, might just be noticeable to him.
We know that he's done that with at least one other track, and I believe that was Doctor Who on TV Themes a few years back. So he doesn't always move on to the next thing quite so quickly.
Right. And aside from that, this album is full of nostalgia. So I call bullshit on it too.
I've got some thoughts on that.
One of our listeners, Wemo, was at the London Rough Trade Q&A that was just a couple of days ago. And he did a really great job giving us kind of a blow-by-blow of a lot of the important questions that were asked. And one of the things that he mentioned that hasn't been mentioned yet is that this album was in the making for 2.5 years. He spent basically a full year just on the production of the album, which is really amazing.
I don't know when that would have been because he's been just pumping out TV output. He's got a new movie coming out. I don't know when he found the time, but the guy just
that also could be maybe that's why it took so long.
Sure, yeah.
Because he's been doing other things. That's where the information about where he tweaked the digital versions after the vinyl was pressed, that it also came from that Q&A. We do have a couple more interview questions, answers that we'll get to when we go through the song breakdown. And let's do it. You guys ready? I'm super excited to hear what you have to say about this.
And likewise, let's jump in.
Matt asking the question we all have burning in our brains. Why on fire?
That was the opening track for Matt's album Heard Noises, which is Why on Fire. Sounded absolutely glorious through these speakers here.
Thank you very much.
You're probably listening on a phone or a car,
Well, hopefully it should stand up on those things, but you'll get the gist.
No, but of course it will stand up, but the difference when you do hear it, and especially where it goes at the end of the track, production-wise, when you're really kind of throwing it left and right and suddenly the drums are in the back and the percussion's there.
Bringing in some witchcraft.
Yeah, it's lovely. Now, that the backwards voices at the end
That was an album of kids singing popular nursery rhymes.
Okay.
Maybe not in the English language, though.
Bit of PRS going their way?
No, because I think I've disguised it well enough.
You are going to get somebody going, no, I'm going to play it the other way around now. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Good luck, Matt, because spoiler.
When he said good luck, I said challenge accepted.
Do it.
We'll get into the reverse track a little bit later, but for anybody that doesn't know, because we didn't, PRS is a
royalty.
Thank you.
Royalty payment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So getting into Why on Fire.
I don't know what Why on Fire, like what that stands for, what the meaning behind it is. Don't care. Love it. It is such a strong opener. I sat down on the couch, I put my phone away, disconnected from everything, and you know what, guys, just play this album so loud. Like, play this song so loud, maybe turn the lights down low, get a little romantic, I don't know. But it was the absolute perfect song to start the album. It's just like, it's magical. And I heard this song, and for the first time, like, this doesn't happen all the time. When you hear the song for the first time and you're like, this is gonna be one of the songs of my life that I just repeat all the time. Just the instrumentation, it really grabs you, and his vocals, they're perfect, they're wonderful. The actual hook has just been getting stuck in my head ever since I first listened to it. I'll be doing the dishes and I'm just singing it. Like, it's so catchy, extremely catchy. I would really love to know kind of the process of this. Like, how did he come up with the title? Where's the hook from? And then him kind of doing his own backup vocals. It's really fun. He's like his own little chorus. I love it.
Yeah, and that's not the first track that he did that on this album, which it wasn't as noticeable to me on this one as it was later on, but I thought that was pretty cool too. I couldn't agree more, actually. This is a very slow building song. The first time I heard it, I thought that my volume was down too low, and I turned it up, and then I heard that it was building. And this is when Eric D. Johnson plays the acoustic guitar, auto harp, and backing vocals on it. I want to preface this by saying the first time I listened to this album, I had partaked in some THC the night before, and it was
scandalous.
Very much in my system the next morning somehow. Don't know why, but I think it added to the experience. So this is the first time ever that I took notes while I was listening to Matt Berry's music for the first time. There's some distant hi-hos and great production. 3/4 of the way through, it just kind of stops. And then you get that sonic movement that they were talking about a little while ago, where the music is moving between the channels back and forth. And the first time I heard it, actually startled me a little bit because it was so sudden, but it was awesome. And I love that Matt calls that bringing in some witchcraft. I thought that was really great. And also, again, we've stressed this so many times, why it is so important to listen to his music with headphones, because you just don't get that if you're listening to it in the car, not even if you're listening to it on speakers, unless you're sitting in the right spot and you have really great speakers. Listen to it with headphones. Do yourself a favor. You will not regret it. I agree with Tara so much that this is such a strong opening track. The piano is really strong after the first verse. The organ is spectacular. And then, I want to hear what Courtney has to say, and then we'll talk about the backwards chanting, all that stuff.
For once, we're all in agreement.
Wow.
This is an absolute tour de force. Don't get used to it. I love just the slow build that you both talked about. I love the texture of that guitar, then the piano, then bass, hand claps, electric guitar. I think there might be some bongos in the mix. I love the kind of Bobo O'Reilly synths that chime in around a little over 2 minutes, 30 seconds in. The distorted vocal around 3:42. Something that I really thought was just a strength of this album was Matt's vocal growth and development. Like, his vocals, I think this started on The Blue Elephant, but his vocals really come into their own here. Like, he just has figured out what his voice is capable of doing and leans into it.
Yes.
Lyrically, there's not a ton of lyrics here, and that's true for a lot of tracks on this album, not all of them. But it introduces what I think is the overarching lyrical theme of this album, which is this kind of struggle between freedom and paralysis. He talks about how he's got a chance to be free, but can't move his arms, can't move his feet. I think that he interprets that theme many different ways throughout the album, even on some of the songs that deal with relationships, just this feeling of being stuck versus breaking free and what that looks like. And musically, it's just beautiful. The only thing that didn't 100% work for me at first, although it has grown on me, is those backward mass children's singing vocals at the very end. I do love what you talked about, Jesse, how they pan back and forth on the headphones. That is cool. And it creates an eerie effect. At first, I was like, this is too much. This is too discordant. It's kind of adding on for the sake of adding on. But with repeated listens, I've grown to really appreciate how it plays around with the time signature and creates a whole new rhythm, something else that I think recurs on this album. So yeah, definitely the obvious opener and just a statement of purpose where this album is going.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And this is the first time we're going to actually kind of do a little bit of a lyric breakdown. Kind of, we all have a little bit of a different take on the lyrics because not all of it we can understand. And there's really nothing available yet as far as the lyrics go. Really simple. Why on fire? Why on fire? There's a chance for me to run and be free, but I'm scared to move my arms, can't move my feet. It all gets too much. It's too intense. If I ran, I'd clear the field, but not the fence. Is that what you all got to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Courtney that the lyrics on this particular one does set the theme. It's similar to the Small Hours in that way. When he says clear the field but not the fence, it's sort of like even if he could escape some things, he wouldn't be able to escape everything. He could maybe escape in the moment, but he'd eventually have to go back to it. And I think he feels trapped by the fear of success. There's a chance for me to run and be free. So it's kind of fear is standing in the way of him maybe accepting higher profile roles or maybe exploring different outlets for his music. I think it's kind of the theme of being trapped by his own, maybe his fear of success. I don't know. That's just the way that I interpreted it. But, you know, with anything, it's up to interpretation and only he knows for sure. As far as the backwards track, I did accept his challenge and he was right. Good luck. The only thing that I can make out from it, and I'm not going to play it because I don't want to get him in trouble if it is a thing. I don't think anybody would be able to pinpoint where it came from, but I'm not going to play this one. There's a couple others I'll play. This one, the only thing I was able to make out from it is I'll be merry and bright. Were you guys able to hear anything else?
Not me. I had a hard time with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Well, it's good to know.
It still sounded backwards to me. Like when I was listening to it, I was like, damn, where did he get this from?
Yeah, that could be why he said it might not be it could be in a different language. Maybe he used a couple of versions of them and layered them on top of each other.
I want to know where he finds this stuff. He talked in kind of a video he did years and years ago now about how he likes to dig through charity store bins, which I think we can identify with.
Oh yeah.
But who goes through a charity store bin and finds this and decides I need this in my life?
Well, he said that he picks out records based on the covers.
The cover art?
The sleeves. Yeah. He's like, if this looks interesting, he'll buy it. Doesn't matter what it is, which, awesome that you have that kind of time and disposable income and space to store these obscure records. But I think it's cool. I think that's it's like you can't judge a book by its cover, only he kind of is doing that.
He's exactly doing that. Yeah.
All right. So Tara, you went first. What is your rating on this song?
5 out of 5. It's friggin' perfect.
Agreed.
All right.
5 out of 5.
Wow.
Are we all gonna agree on 5 out of 5, Courtney?
4.5.
Oh, Courtney! We almost had it there.
I think that the children's singing is just a little too much.
I
get it.
I
get it, because it had to like grow on me a little bit because I didn't like it at first, but now I'm like, oh, cool, it works.
I like it just because I like music that's interesting to my ears, and I like that it doesn't really make sense, but it's interesting to listen to. So I thought it was really cool. It just adds to the little bit of like confusion, and maybe that's part of the supernatural element, but I don't know. I guess we might talk about that a little bit later. Moving on to Silver Rings. We have an additional quote for this song. It's from an outlet called Excess Noise, and it was just an album review, but they have a couple of quotes from Matt that are not attributed to any interview, and I don't know where they came from, but they're mentioned within this album review. So it says Silver Rings is a soft rock ballad examining the need to sever a relationship to protect oneself. It features a melancholy, haunting flute which wafts throughout the central part of the song. Whether this is a romantic or professional relationship is up for debate. Barry explains, I turned 50 when I made the album. I stopped doing a show that I'd done for the most part of a decade, both of which are mentioned on the record in various ways. So Interesting. I don't know where that came from.
Well, interesting take, because I don't hear anything that would have to do with the show on this song. Of course, I didn't write it. I'm not in his head. Mm-hmm. But to me, it sounds like a fairly straightforward breakup song.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I don't get the profession. I read that too, and I was like, I read it over again in my head because I had written down the lyrics, and I was like, I don't know how you'd get a professional relationship from this.
I don't either, and it's a little strange that Album Review doesn't have any reference to where those quotes came from. So, really, we don't know if that quote is actually attributed to that song, but that's how they wrote it. So we'll defer to the author.
Put my things in a box, mail them back to me, my Red Wing boots, a couple of tops, but more importantly, I want my heart back, I want my head back again. You make a back, silver rings left under my bed, that photo book that you made, but I can't look at again. I want my heart back, I want my head back again.
Production-wise, this is a little bit of an outlier. I think we all thought that it sounded a little Phantom Birds-esque. I don't know that it was written for Phantom Birds, but it does sound like it's maybe from an earlier era of Matt's music. That being said, I think it really works in that sense. Sandwiched between Why on Fire and the interlude and then Be Alarmed, it just lends some variety. It lends some contrast. It continues that theme that I brought up and will bring up again of paralysis and being stuck. He talks about wanting his head back, wanting his heart back, just feeling kind of stuck in the past, which is a big theme on Phantom Birds as well. And, I think what a lot of us immediately thought of, even when we saw this song title on the original Acid Jazz press release, was the connection with the silver pinky rings that he always wears and has for years now. I have no idea if that's what this connection means. I think it probably does have some connection just because the rings are a little bit of a signature for him now, especially if you're a big fan. He must have known people would speculate and make that connection. And whatever the rings mean to him, maybe they're just a fashion statement, maybe not. It seems like he had to put them out of sight for a while. He talks about putting them under the bed. It's ambiguous, and I like that ambiguity. As far as influences, this pretty much screams early 60s pop folk. I thought of the Mamas and the Papas, the Turtles. Tara, you actually spotted a quote where he really directly talks about his influences on this track, which is pretty unusual for him.
Yeah, so this is from an interview he did with The Quietus, where he was just talking about his favorite albums, and it's a very good read. I would recommend everyone to go check it out. Matt was talking about one of his favorite albums being Simon and Garfunkel, specifically The Collection, which came out in 1981. And he mentions that The Sound of Silence was actually a direct influence for this song. And he also mentions that, and I'm just going to read this quote. He says, "For the album that I've just done, there's a song, Silver Rings, that's completely influenced by that, where I've tried to bolt on some 12-string Birds guitar."
Which is funny that he references Simon and Garfunkel, The Sound of Silence, and then talks about the Birds.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Simon and Garfunkel fan, and I never would have gotten the similarities between those two songs, but okay. I mean, I'm not a musician, so maybe that's why.
I didn't hear anything either. I listened, I love The Sound of Silence, and I listened to it again, and I was like, I mean, it's a 1960s poppy song, but I don't get the.
But it's not. It's not really pop, though. It's more folk. And this.
Sorry,
is
I meant like Silver Rings is like, poppy, fun, and that's not Sound of Silence.
And the Sound of Silence is like dark.
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
very.
As far as Courtney, you mentioned the lyrics. I'll just read through what I got. I have put my things in a box and mailed them back to me. My Red Wing boots, a couple of tops, but more importantly, I want my heart back. I want my head back again. This line, I have your makeup bag, silver rings left under my bed, the photo book that you made that I can't look at again. I want my heart back. I want my head back again. We'll make a scene. I'll make a fuss. I messed it up. I missed the bus. It's all I can do to protect me when all of your things upset me. Put my things in a box and mailed them back to me. My whole life was with you. Now it's over, don't you see? I want my heart back. I want my head back again. I want my life back again.
It's got a great sense of specificity. You don't always get that with
it totally
Matt's lyrics.
does. Yeah. The part with the rings, though, you thought that it was that his silver rings left under the bed, but I took it as he's talking about your makeup bag, silver rings. So I was thinking it's her silver rings left under his bed. Like she forgot, that's some of the items that were forgotten. So I don't know which it is, but that's how I took it. So this song, when I first heard it in my dazed state, I was like, this reminds me of a song, and I couldn't pinpoint it. And then when I listened again, the song that I got was Last Kiss by J. Frank Wilson and the Cavaliers, which is from 1964. Most people are probably more familiar with the version that Pearl Jam did in 1999. I just think not lyrically, but more of like a song structure. That's what it really reminded me of. And it's got that very, very early 60s vintage classic sound. It's also a little reminiscent of One by One, I thought, from the Small Hours. It gave me that kind of, I think with the structure of the lyrics is what sort of reminded me of that. By Matt Berry standards, this is a very straightforward breakup type song. Things are physically over, but he's definitely not mentally over them. And then I said in my notes, I said I wouldn't be surprised if this was a holdover from Phantom Birds. It's structured similarly, has a bit of a country vibe to it, and it also fits more of the theme with Phantom Birds. And Matt basically verified that during the Q&A. I actually discussed this with one of my friends that was at the Q&A, and this was a question that she asked. Was it a holdover from Phantom Birds? And he was very impressed by that, and he said that's a good spot. He didn't confirm directly that it was from Phantom Birds, but he did say that it's something that he'd been wanting to use for the last few years, and he, finally was able to use it on this. So it's always nice when we can verify certain things in real time, even if he didn't specifically say it was from Phantom Bird. I think it's a good possibility that that's what it was from.
So the only reason I think it's probably not from Phantom Birds proper, and again, we don't know, but first of all, it's as strong as anything that did make it on Phantom Birds. I mean, stronger than some of those tracks, but also because Phantom Furst exists. And why would he not, if that was something that was made before he started on this album, why not put it there?
Well, because I think probably he wanted to use it elsewhere. So that's my theory on it. Again, it could be wrong.
I had the thought that it was something that he thought maybe didn't fit on Phantom Birds, or, to me, this is the same breakup that he was writing about on Phantom Birds.
I agree.
100%. This song, the lyrics, they're just, I love it. It's, again, like you're saying, it's very stripped back, which is very much my kind of thing. But it's kind of almost like a little bit happy sounding. It's a little happy kind of sounding breakup song. I don't know, I sway back and forth when I'm listening to it. It's catchy. I think it's another one of his lyrical winners. It really shows off his writing chops. It's nothing, over the top, but just, we've all been there, right? Get your shit out of my house. It's breaking my heart. I just found it kind of gut-wrenching, and I don't know, just to me, the music is kind of almost a little bit, I don't know, not breakup songy.
That's
it is
really
poppy.
Yeah, it's poppy. And, that's a really good point. And I think that's why it reminds me of Last Kiss, because that song is literally about a car crash and his girl dying in a freaking car crash. And yet the music is upbeat, but the lyrics are very, very dark. And that's a really good point. And I think that's exactly why it reminded me of that song when I heard it. But I didn't realize it until that's why you just said it. Yeah, I think that's it.
So what do we rate it, guys? Or do we have something else to say?
For me, this is 4 stars. It's slight. It's not like an all-timer in his catalog, but it is well-written, catchy, heartfelt, and I think it's needed between the songs that come before and after it.
Yeah, I give it a 4.5 out of 5. I really, really liked it.
I think I'm like a 4.5 type too. It's fantastic. I can't fault it at all. I just don't think it's maybe not as good as some of the other tracks on the album, or just not my personal favorite as far as some, but it's still fantastic.
Okay. Matt has included interludes and intermissions on his albums really since the beginning. I think even going back to Opium, that's been kind of a motif, and this is no exception. The main thing I've got to say about Interlude, the first of two, is that the start of this track feels like it could be on Kill the Wolf. It's got that really straight, folky feel, but very much of Herd Noises. It's merged with the chanting that we hear throughout the album. It's merged with synths. It's almost like a little minute-long synopsis of his evolution as a musician.
Why is he so good at this? Why is he so good at these little tiny snippets of music? I don't know.
One thing I want to say about the chanting, and didn't mention this on Why and Fire, but that kind of, hey, that's something that we first heard a variation of on Blues Inside Me back on the Blue Elephant. Clearly he liked it because it's all over this album. I think it really works. It sounds like he's having fun yelling, maybe getting some feelings out there. But for whatever reason, it's just a little bit of a theme here.
Yeah, it is. It's on almost every track.
And it's fun. Yeah. I love it. Like, this is just a fun little interlude. Like, I love the little space sounds at the end. Takes you on like a little miniature journey. And, it's just a fun little break between the songs. And I really actually loved it. And I'm not a huge fan of maybe interludes, but I love this one.
I don't know how much interludes were super necessary on this. A lot of times he uses them to switch between one feel of music to he's transitioning to something else. But I feel like every track on this album is its own transition in a way. So I don't know if it was needed, but I mean, I'm never going to say don't include an interlude because I love the interludes. I think they're so great.
It was fun.
I mean, it really is pretty straight, quiet, loud.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bassy, straightforward. Yeah, he's good at album sequencing, and he's only gotten better.
Well, I don't know. Do we need to give stars on this one?
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. That sounds good.
4. I mean, I couldn't hum it right now, but it works in its context.
Yes. So moving on to Be Alarmed. So this one starts with a slow, deep rumble, and then it slowly builds, and then there's sudden, almost spoken, haunting vocals. He says, like some talk of spring, like a summer sun, she was here again, then she was gone. No matter here, no matter there, I should be alarmed, but I don't care.
Like some talk of spring, like the summer sun, she was here again, then she was gone. No matter here, no matter there, I should be alarmed, but I don't care.
So this song makes me feel like I'm in a a black hole or an outer space and I'm just floating. It's just so atmospheric that I want to literally close my eyes and fall into it. It's just a really, really slow build. You hear some of Matt's mom's choir chanting. It sounds like some birds in the distance. And then there's some backward speaking vocals layered on top of it. And he does backward vocals quite a bit. This particular one, the first time I heard it, sounded like, oh my gosh, this sounds like the Red Room from Twin Peaks, where they're all speaking backwards. It's not always that obvious. And I think that I know why it does, is because it's actually spoken word.
I am my one, my only, and my all. My one, my only, and my all. All I am. I enter as I come, as I enter. I fall nowhere. I wish to be.
It's Natasha Lyonne's voice from I Entered As I Came, flipped backwards and layered on top.
Yeah, so this one, it started off kind of foreboding and almost off-putting, and then builds, and he's, doing what he does best, just playing with the sounds and effects. And I found it like a little, I don't know, surreal, like it was dreamy. One of the little notes I scribbled at some point was Alice in Wonderland if it was a song. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I was just like
down the rabbit hole.
Down the rabbit hole,
yeah.
Exactly.
And then it was reminding me of Within You, Without You by the Beatles. Just kind of that era of the Beatles where I don't know, they went to India and they started getting kind of like, woo.
Yep. Yeah. I can hear that.
Like a little bit trippy. I just closed my eyes the other day and just listened to it. And, it's like he kind of sounds a little bit ethereal to me. I find the song almost like forces you to listen to it. Before Jesse did the backwards, flipping it around, I was just sitting there trying to figure out what the backwards words are. And that you're not going to figure it out. Like, what are you doing? Yeah.
I could tell it was her voice, but I couldn't tell what she was saying.
Yeah. That's also kind of what I got from it. So, yeah.
This doesn't work for me. It's one of the few things on the album that doesn't. And it's not like atrocious, but it feels like a Doors pastiche. That's not in and of itself a bad thing. I like the Doors a lot. They're obviously a huge influence on Matt, but it doesn't feel like it really transcends that. It works in that level, not on its own. There's some interesting stuff, the kind of echo that amplifies the depth of the vocals, the distant drums. This is a real synth workout, and to me the synths feel kind of cluttered, like it's Matt sort of playing with his collection, but that he's having fun, but it doesn't serve the song. I do like how the synth in the last 40 seconds kind of lends a little bit of brightness, feels a little more hopeful. The backwards vocals are cool, but to me it's more meandering. It's more of a sketch than a song, and I think if it was going to be included, it should be later in the album. I think given the momentum before and what comes later, it just grinds things to a halt. So yeah, to me this is very much a deep cut. I'm not sure that it really adds much, but it doesn't detract a whole lot either.
I think for the reasons that you don't like it a lot are the same reasons that I do like it a lot. It's very trippy. It's very, very atmospheric. And I also, like you said a minute ago about this, it's all loud, quiet, loud, quiet. I think the whole sequencing of the tracks are jolting on purpose, that he did that loud, quiet to sort of keep you on edge a little bit. And this one goes from quiet, hypnotic to boom, the next track, which is polar opposite. And that's not something he normally does. And I think that's why the interludes are always important, because he'll have a certain tone and then he'll do an interlude which will bring you into the next part. But this, it's not like that. And I think it was done that way to keep you guessing, keep you on your toes, making you feel slightly off balanced.
That I actually thought was cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the songwriting's not there for me.
No, that's, fair enough. We're not going to like all of them. And it's more, rather than song lyrics, it sounds like beat poetry, which is an opinion that I have a little bit later on, too. I like how it makes me feel as far as just being spaced out.
For me, well, let's go around. I'll go last.
I'll go first since I started this one. It's not my favorite track on the album, but still like a solid 4 stars because I think it's really great.
Yeah, I also agree. I think it's 4 out of 5.
2.25.
Wow. Okay.
The point 25.
I mean,
Right.
spoiler alert. I don't think I have any tracks that are going to go that low, but I don't know. Maybe.
This is the lowest on the album for me.
Maybe coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we talked about the kind of contrast in the sequencing of this album, and this is probably the most whiplash we get, going from Be Alarmed to I Got a Limit. This was the first single on the album, as we mentioned, the only single that received a physical release. This is the first true duet that he's ever recorded. I think that's true. He's spoken a couple of places to how that came about. Acid Jazz actually released a little, it's like a minute or so long, a little promo video of him and Kitty talking about how it was made. He went a little more in depth on that Steve Martin Show interview. They did play that track, and Steve Furst talked about his role in bringing this song together.
We are going to play another of your tracks, Matt, and it's because we've got a screen in the studio that shows guests that have been on other shows and stuff. And then Matt just went, "Oh, it's Kitty," and Kitty Leave. We both saw together at Rough Trade.
Yeah.
And I'd seen Kitty about
me,
2 weeks before. Because I compared a thing, my friend was putting a thing on at the Groucho upstairs and said, "Can you come down and introduce this artist?" And I went, "Is she part of Kitty Daisy Lewis?" "Yes." I went, "Oh, I'd love to." And then she played to about 30 of us, and I was like, she is by herself with no one.
Yeah, she's crazy.
Was incredible. And then we saw her with her boyfriend and her husband and her brother.
And she's ridiculous.
She's ridiculous.
She's so good.
And after that gig, you went, "Oh,
well, because I needed a voice for this song." And
so the song was already, had you recorded the song?
Yeah, it was all done. And I wasn't going to put it on because I didn't know anyone that could do what it needed to do. There's a certain thing, like a certain...
Is it an attitude?
No, it's a sort of vintagey thing. A
Vocally.
head voice. A sort of 60s sort of head voice that I was sort of like looking for. And I'd done like the sort of demo. Sounded shit with two of the same people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was just going to scrap it and think,
So it was always going to be a duet of some sort?
Yeah. It wouldn't have worked any other way. And then we saw her, and she just blew everyone away, and that was it. I was like, well, that's it. That's what will work. And if it wasn't for her, the track, she really makes it, I think.
Let's hear it. It's you with Kitty Leave, and it is I Gotta Limit.
I am a man on the strength of a lie, and I don't understand of the which of the why.
You are a man, you're a crazy at a time. Won't you make up your mind? Is it lemon, is it lime? Oh.
I am a man, and my shirt is too bright, and my hair took a dive, and my pants are too tight. Oh,
I got a limit, you sure I did it.
This track has a strong Northern Soul influence. I think we all had a similar reaction when we first heard it, which is, this is a left turn for him. But that being said, he's always been a vocal fan of Northern Soul. He's talked a lot in interviews about how it's something he loves and plays a lot. He's just never shown that influence before in his music, certainly not in the same way. I like this song. It's catchy, it's witty. The lyrics really poke fun at traditional masculinity, this kind of self-aggrandizing. Kitty Liv kind of tears apart his pretensions. He talks about how he's a man on the strength of a lie, and who, it almost sounds like he's bragging. I'll do what I can when my mom is in a jam or this shit hits the fan, and she just tears it apart.
Let's go through the lyrics real quick, because this was a really hard one to figure out. I don't know if we have the same thoughts on it. It's a back and forth. It says, I am a man on the strength of a lie, and I don't understand nor the which or the why. And then it says, you are a man. I have no idea what she says right after that.
She says, you're a craze of a time.
Oh, you're a craze of a time. That's what we think.
Which I think, we were chatting a little. What does that mean? Yeah. To me, it's a little awkward, but I think she's just saying, like, you're fun, but you're kind of crazy making.
Right. If that's what she's saying. I agree with you.
Sure.
I think it is.
Right.
And then the next part is, won't you make up your mind? At first, all of us thought, is it lemon or is it lime? And that makes absolutely no sense, other than maybe him being...
sweet and sour, maybe.
Sweet and sour, or indecisive. But I think actually what she's saying is, won't you make up your mind? Is it libel? Is it lie? So possibly that. And then it says, I am a man and my shirt is too bright and my hair took a dive and my pants are too tight, which, I mean, relatable, Matt. Very relatable. And then it says, I got a limit. You sure have hit it. And then it goes back into, I am a man who just tries to survive like a fish on the tide or a bee in the hive. And she says, you are a man in the blink of an eye, went from 10 to a 5. Am I wrong or am I right? He says, I'm a man who will do what he can when his mama's in a jam or the shit's hit the fan. And then she said, I've got a limit. You sure have hit it. And then it goes into like a slower verse, says, so I guess it's over. And he responds, please don't go. She says, until you're sober. And he says, please no, please no. Yeah. And she says, you're not in my class. And he said, oh, I know. And she said, so go by and kiss my ass. And then it goes into like, there's more of it, like a repeat. It's echoey and it's hard to make out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So continue, Courtney. I'm sorry. I just wanted to break in with the lyrics so it's a little bit more in context.
Okay. So unlike most of his music, which is very autobiographical, I think he's playing a character here. First of all, it's, you know, it's not as personal a song as most of what's on the album. It feels a little jokey, not in a bad way, but it's also, okay, his shirt is too bright. The guy wears only black or white, occasionally denim. Once he wore a Hawaiian shirt and everyone freaked out, and then he never wore that again. His pants are too tight, withholding comment on that, but the man loves a pair of sweatpants. So I don't think he's singing from his own perspective here. I do think the vocal interplay here is the best thing about the song. Kitty Liv's voice is perfect. We'll speak to that. She sounds really playful, seductive, flirty. I think the contrast between Be Alarmed before this and Wedding Photo Stranger after it works, but it feels like an outlier on the album. I think this would have worked better as a one-off single, kind of akin to Beatmaker, which I think Beatmaker is really the stylistic predecessor here. It feels like a fun track, but it sticks out like a sore thumb here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was not a fan of the single when I first heard it. I really don't know if it was just the duet aspect, if it was something so different from Matt that I wasn't expecting, wasn't really understanding. It seemed a little pastiche, maybe. I mean, it's clearly a song about two people who are not getting along and they're ending their relationship. I do think that this is biographical to an extent. I don't think he's playing a character. I think he's putting it out there that he is difficult to be in a relationship with, and that's the reason why he's had failed relationships.
Do we know that he's had failed relationships? I mean, he's so private.
I mean,
we know that he made a breakup album.
Phantom Birds is about failed relationships. Silver Rings is about failed relationships. This song is about failed relationships. Most of his songs are about failed relationships.
You know what this song reminded me of? It reminded me of Jackson by Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash. Sounds nothing like it. But, the lyrics of this kind of couple that have this push-pull, they love each other, they hate each other, but they love each other. I heard that right away.
Yeah, that's who it reminded me of too. And I actually went back to see if any of their music actually sounded like that. I didn't dive that far in, but I did get that vibe from it. So that's funny. I mean, I think this is, it's like extremely retro. It's almost like bubblegum pop. I don't know if it works. I don't know that this duet style is his thing. I agree that I think this may have been better as just a one-off and not on the album. I think my biggest issue with it is that I cannot understand most of what Kitty Liv is saying, and that bugs me because I feel like what she's saying is important to the story. I think when you have a back and forth where it's almost a call and response type thing, it's important to hear both sides of it. So I love her voice. That's my critique of it.
I agree with you guys and I disagree with you guys. I don't know. I love it. For me, I think I'm seeing this song with rose-colored glasses because I first heard this song. It was released when I was in Ireland on a dream trip. I was literally in Connemara and our Airbnb was like on the ocean with mountains, and I listened to this song for the first time on repeat, sitting out there looking at that. And I was so excited. Like, it had been so long, like, no offense to Simplicity, but it had been a really long time, you know, since I got excited for new music of Matt's. And when I heard it, I really, really liked it. I was a little bit, I don't know, the duet thing, I don't know, but I thought it really worked, and, just the excitement of it, I think I might be more of a fan of it than if maybe I had kind of just heard it for the first time on this album. So I think that does color it a little bit for me. It's not what I expected at all, when it was released. I think we all kind of were maybe a little bit surprised. Was it the best choice for the first single? I don't know. I have opinions about the other one that was released too, but that wasn't my decision, so whatever. It does get stuck in my head, I have to say, and it has for a long time, the fun little back and forth. Yeah, I think I don't know, it's catchy, but it's kind of easy listening. It's nothing earth-shattering, but, a little bit dangerously catchy.
Dangerously catchy.
The most commercial song on the album, I think that's fair to say, and so I get why it was a single. It's just a little bit of bait and switch because nothing else here sounds like that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I get why they chose it as a single, but it doesn't represent the album in any way, shape, or form. I didn't like it the first time I heard it, to be honest.
Sorry, and I do agree with you, Courtney, kind of about what if this had just been released like Beatmaker, like on its own. I go back and forth whether I think that like it should have kind of just been on its own. I think it fits with the album, but it was a little bit, like you said, a bait and switch, Jesse, because it was like...
Yeah, it was jarring because I heard that and I was like, shit, what's the rest of this album going to sound like? Is it going to sound like this? Because I don't like this. But yeah, if it was like a standalone like Beatmaker, I probably would have had a little bit of a different feeling about it because it wasn't going to be the whole album. And when I heard the whole album, finally, I was like, thank God.
It's not like that, yeah.
It's not like that. So, and then I got it a little bit where it fits.
I would not mind a Matt Berry Northern Soul album. I think that'd be cool. I think he'd have fun with it, but it just wasn't what I was hoping to hear after The Blue Elephant. Have I mentioned that I like The Blue Elephant? I don't think I've really liked that before.
That is breaking news.
Okay.
All right. So, Courtney, what do you give this one?
Okay. I'm going to give this 2-star ratings because I think as a standalone, it's a solid 4 stars. On this album, it's 3. It works better out of context, and I think when you judge it like that, it's just a better song. So does that average to 3.5, I suppose? Yeah.
I like that you did that because I was about to actually just do the same thing. As a single, as a first listen, I give it like a 2.5. As in context of the album, I give it probably a 3.5.
Oh, so opposite.
So kind of different, yeah.
So I give it a 3.5. That's funny, yeah. We all are fairly in agreement.
So weird. It is so weird that this is my least favorite track, and this is the one that was chosen for a single. It irks me, but I get it. Okay, next up, Wedding Photo Stranger. And there was another little piece of this in that XS Noise review. Wedding Photo Stranger is a prog rock psychedelic hybrid where you're certainly taken into the realms of the trippy. Just enjoy the track with your eyes shut in a darkened room. Let it penetrate your brain. Let it ooze into your socks and pool in the small of your back. May Barry's vocals echo around your skull like nagging neuralgia. Consider it a 4.5-minute meditation that will change your mood in some shape or form. You have nothing to lose but your marbles. As Barry highlights, quote, "The album is psychedelic to a point. I have trouble shaking that off because to me there's nothing so magical about the style." Y'all, how good is that?
That's a lot.
That's so a lot. I don't necessarily agree with it for this song, but it's a lot. Oh my God, I love it. I actually thought that fits more with The Alarm. But yeah.
Don't talk, don't say a word. It's not your house, it's not your bird. Planet smashed, something's wrong. Bride and groom, wait, hang on. Look again, I'm not high. Second right, who's that guy? Don't talk, don't say a word. It's not your game, it's not your world. Bad on past, stepping down. Not my street, not my town.
don't know that it oozed into my socks. But
we should also mention that this is the second single that was released to add a little bit more context.
Yeah,
Yes.
just a couple of weeks before the album release. They waited quite a while before they gave us another single, and it couldn't be more different.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I did not like this song. Like, I was so scared because, again, I Got a Limit was like a whole thing. We just discussed it. It was a whole thing. And then this song, and I was like, what the fuck is this album gonna be? Like, what? I like it now, to be clear, guys. I think it totally fits, but no, it threw me off. But now, like, it gets stuck in my head, and it's catchy, and it's good, but scared me.
I get that.
Yeah, I get that too. You know what? It threw me off too when I first heard it, but I was really, really confused. We had just heard the first single, I Got a Limit. This one is completely different and also didn't make me feel better about the upcoming album. I was really confused because to me, it sounds like a complete recycling of tracks from The Blue Elephant and mixed with Top Brass from Simplicity, because it's a really similar bass line to Top Brass. Matt likes to reuse things. We know that, and I'm fine with that. But this one just sounded so blatantly recycled. I was like, what is happening here? But when I got past that, I had to listen to it a bunch more during the course of the day because, I was doing social media and I kept listening to clips of it. And I was like, when you separate it from that, from what I already know of Matt's, I listened to this as like its own thing. And when I did that, I actually really, really started to like it a lot. I don't think it was fair of me to have that reaction because, casual listeners are not as into breaking down and pinpointing and scrutinizing every little detail. So I think it was my first reaction was unfair. The lyrics are a little opaque. Don't speak, don't say a word. It's not your house. It's not your bird. Planet smashed, something's wrong. Bride and groom, wait, hang on. Look again, I'm not high. Second row, who's that guy? And then the second verse, don't talk, don't say a word. It's not your game, it's not your world. Baton passed, stepping down, not my street, not my town. The lyrics are what you make of them. I don't really know. It could be him looking back at old photos, having no idea who some of the people are. Like, they seem significant at the time, but they're strangers now. Or maybe he's looking at photos and seeing himself and doesn't remember the circumstances or remember the person that he used to be at the time. Is this a story that somebody told him? Is it a ghost? Is it an alien? Is he looking at wedding photos and sees somebody he knows with somebody he doesn't and wondering why they're together? Like, that's not supposed to be happening. Then he's like, wait, you know what? It's over. It's not my problem anymore. Or maybe he's seeing a girlfriend with somebody new, like a new partner, and they've broken up, or maybe they were together before and he didn't know about it. It could be so many different angles. I do like the line. I'm pretty sure he's saying baton passed, stepping down, not my street, not my town. I think that could easily
I think so
have
too.
been, I think that could have easily been substituted with not my circus, not my clowns. Like, it's not my problem anymore, So
It doesn't flow the same way.
No.
Does it not? I mean, I'm not the lyricist here, but I feel like it could have been interchangeable. This is another one where, as a single, it just makes no sense at all. And I think it was so unfair to include it as a single, just because it just doesn't do it justice. Within the context of the album, man, it works so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all, for once, had a similar take on this. I don't think it works as a single. I think it works... I didn't like it at first. Like, I just outright disliked it. But it works well in the context of the album, and it's really grown on me. It feels so tense and so almost paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
The drum beat is just persistent and pounding. There's heavy breathing that comes into the mix around 1 minute 53 seconds in. I didn't hear that until I'd listened with headphones. But the breathing continues, almost panting, continues throughout the second half of the song. And combined with the synths, it's just visceral anxiety. Lyrically, I think there's this theme of paralysis again that I already mentioned. Planet smashed, but he's stuck holding back. He can't talk freely about whatever is causing this reaction to this photo. And you had some really interesting takes there. He's trying to cut his connection with the past. It's not my street. It's not my town. The baton's passed. And that's a theme throughout the album as well, especially in the second half of the album. There's this theme of separation from his younger self that comes up as well. So what this this is about, we'll probably never know. But I think the feelings that it brings up and the panic that it brings up come through loud and clear. And we all kind of know that feeling, right? Some variation of it, just whether it's scrolling Facebook or Instagram, who hasn't, like at 3 a.m, looked up photos of people from their past that we don't talk with anymore? Come on. This is that experience, but you're at someone's house and you can't say anything and you have to keep it together. And I think the track itself is kind of a slow burn, but it works.
You guys are so good at like kind of pinpointing stuff I don't think we're gonna know. Like, I think the lyrics are kind of ambiguous. Yeah,
very much.
Sometimes that annoys me, but in this case, I don't mind it because you can kind of make of it what you wish. I think I would give this, first time I heard it, 2, because I was upset that it sounded so recycled. Within the context of the album, I give it a solid 4.
Yeah, I'm the same too. From the get-go, no thank you. You're freaking me out, 2 out of 5. But in the context of the album, it's really good. 4 out of 5. I completely agree.
So for me, this is going to be, I'd say it's 4 stars.
Ooh, was that all of us with a 4-star review?
Oh my God.
Good for us.
I don't think this has happened that we've agreed on like the numbers for so many.
Very rarely.
It's been like in my mind, take a bow, maybe rain came down. You can count it on one hand.
Yeah.
Moving on to Stay on the Ground.
I flick another one over. Can't get addicted to this. I'm on a diet of fear and bullshit. Some sticks, most of it slips. I need to give it a miss. The kid floats high in the woodlands. The guy who died reappears. It's not a question of will they, won't they, 'cause they're already here. Your story's not very clear. Stay on the ground, ignore the sound. It's all around, senses drown. In the air and everywhere, have no care.
Let me start with the lyrics on this one because I don't think we agree. So I flick another one over, can't get addicted to this. I'm on a diet of fear and bullshit. Some sticks, most of it slips. I need to give it either a minute or a rest. Can't tell. Don't know if you guys got something.
Give it a miss.
Give it a miss, maybe. The kid was high on the woodlands. The guy who died reappeared. It's not a question of will they, won't they, because they're already here. Your story's not very clear. This is the chorus. I'll just say chorus when we get to it again. Stay on the ground. Ignore the sounds. It's all around. I don't know what he's saying here. It's senses ground or sent to ground. I don't care or have no care. I'm not really sure. I don't know if you guys got something different.
I had a hard time with this one.
Eat only fix before midday, and don't compare to the crowd. A list of cliches for us to live by. It's all too quick and too loud. Be stupid, be proud. Your phone was seen in the 80s. Your baby's lived here before. Your mother spoke in a dead man's voice, and you're drunk evading the law. Your fake alien war.
He only eats either figs or fish, maybe, before midday, and don't compare
figs.
Figs.
I think figs too, yeah.
Okay. And don't compare to the crowd. A list of cliches of us to live by. It's all too quick and too loud. The stupid, the proud, possibly.
I think it's be stupid, be proud.
Yeah,
I feel pretty confident on that one.
That makes more sense. Your phone was seen in the 80s. Your baby's lived here before. Your mother spoke in a dead man's voice, and your drunk evaded the law. Your fake alien war, and then he repeats the chorus.
Lyrically, I think this is probably the most interesting song on the album and probably the one that spoke to me the most. I think this song starts with the theme of disgust before moving into some kind of aphorisms. He starts by talking about how he can't get addicted to this. He doesn't want to get sucked in. And I think what he's saying there is that he's not going to be contained by arbitrary restrictions from society, from religion, maybe about music, his career, who knows. But these cryptic statements in the verses, at first I thought they were maybe nonsense. I don't think they are. I think these are, like he says, sort of cliches for us to live by, but maybe ones that he's made up, but ones that don't sound that far off from what you might see in the Bible or just as aphorisms. In the second verse, he really talks about past norms and past experiences. Your baby's lived here before. Your mother spoke in a dead man's voice. Even your phone was seen in the 80s. Kind of a strange line, but it's about the past. And then he talks about himself drunk and evading the law. He's refusing to conform to these past norms. He's doing his own thing. The chorus, I think, is the most joyous on the album. It catches you off guard. It catches your breath. It's pop at its purest and most beautiful. The lyrics, "Stay on the ground," I think are about choosing to do your own thing. I immediately thought of the infamous double-decker story. You know, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know the double-decker story about how he was fired for eating a double-decker on his desk, never worked a straight job again, never looked back. That's been such a theme for him and such a guiding principle for him in his music and his acting, his writing. It's about doing your own thing, damn the comparisons. And musically, this is just a standout. The verses, the chorus, but especially this kind of sparkling, chiming, effervescent synth that starts a little after the 3-minute mark. It's propulsive. It's like the embodiment of have no care. It's breathtaking.
So I have a completely different take on the lyrics, and I think it's much simpler. I have absolutely no way of knowing if I'm right. I think this is about social media and the internet. I think this is about doom scrolling, where he says, I flick another one over, can't get addicted to this. I'm on a diet of fear and bullshit. That's doom scrolling. That's constantly scrolling TikTok or, anything. And it's just nonsense. The rest of it, it's kind of like news headlines. Like the kid was high in the woodlands. The guy who died reappeared. Those are basically news headlines. Your story's not very clear. Maybe that's his response to some of them. And then the chorus, stay on the ground, ignore the sounds. I think that's him saying, don't get sucked into this. He doesn't have hardly any social media presence. And I really think that that's him saying, just ignore it. Don't let yourself be sucked in by this nonsense. First, I thought that this might be things that he overheard. Like the title is Heard Noises. I thought maybe these are little clips and conversations and stuff that he may have heard. But the more I listen to it, I don't think that's it. He only eats figs before midday. Don't compare to the crowd. Like, don't compare to the crowd could be like a direct reference to Donald Trump's crowd sizes and stuff, which is a big online news story. A list of cliches to live by, like literally something you would see online. Be stupid, be proud.
Yeah.
The stupidity of people online and how they're so proud of it and they don't even know how stupid they are. And the rest of it is basically the same, like your fake alien war. It's just misinformation, conspiracy theories. That's how I took it. Again,
I did not get that at all. I thought be stupid, be proud. I thought it was just about mindlessly conforming, not thinking critically, just going with what's expected of you. It's an interesting interpretation, Jesse, even though I don't know that I agree, but how do you interpret your baby's lived here before, your mother spoke in a dead man's voice? What does that have to do with social media?
Just complete nonsense, like clickbait headlines. The first time I heard it, I was like, this is going to require some much deeper diving. And then I think probably on my third listen to it, it sort of hit me that, I think this might be a dissertation on how social media is destroying everyone. You mentioned how good the music is on this one. I think it's completely lyric driven. I think the music was a secondary concern. Not that it's not great, but I think it was secondary. The chorus seems tonally disconnected because you're right. It's very joyous and the rest of the song is so dark. The outro of it has that like kind of 60s bright pop instrumental that has that very matte feel to it. The other thing, I think the lyric structure is a bit like Covered in Clowns.
Tara.
So I obviously have not spent as long kind of trying to deconstruct it as you guys have, because I literally just took it kind of at face value that a lot of it is nonsense and it's just kind of, when Matt kind of just writes things because it sounds good and it goes with the melody that he already kind of had. So I didn't really put a ton of thought into it. I find the social media thing very interesting because I do definitely see parts that would fit with that. But yeah, for me, I just took it as very simply, keep focused, keep yourself grounded, ignore anything destructive around you, anything distracting. There's a lot of bullshit out there to distract you. Just don't have your head in the clouds, So yeah, I haven't put as much thought into it as you guys, but honestly, I have a hard time with this song. I really love the verses. I love the way he sings it. I like the lyrics. Like, I don't necessarily understand them, but I like them. But the chorus, I don't like it. And it's too sing-songy. And it gets my hackles up kind of, and I feel like it's probably one of those things where we just haven't had much exposure to this album yet, and it might grow on me, and I have a feeling this is one of those ones where a couple months from now I'm gonna be like, I can't believe I said I hated the chorus, because now it's, I love it, and it's catchy and I love it, but at this point it really throws me, and
that's funny. Right. I think it's the
some
chorus.
Dissenting voices.
Yeah, I think it's the chorus that saves it for me.
I think this is a perfect song. This is an easy 5 out of 5 for me, and I think it's actually one of the best things he's ever recorded.
Whoa!
I will throw down that gauntlet.
Wow, I'm so shocked. But we do have a lot of similarities, but then we have again this where you're like, this is his best song, and I'm like, oh god.
Well, it's not his best, his best, but it's a top
there.
10 for me. I think. Yeah, it's up there.
It's not a 5 for me. This one is a little bit hard for me to pinpoint. I think it's brilliant, but I also would love to know more what it's about. I think that's part of what bugs me in Covered in Clowns because it's so shrouded in imagery. And I don't know if that's the case with this or is it as simple as what I said. So I think probably it's a 3.5 or a 4, probably more leading towards a 4.
I give it a 3. I really like the verses. I like parts of it. And then the chorus, I'm like, can I fast forward it?
There are songs in this album I feel that way about, but in due time.
The next track is Entered As I Came, and this is the one that features Natasha Lyonne, her monologue. And it's interesting to note that we saw that Matt mentioned that they worked together. I knew that they knew each other. Natasha Lyonne and Fred Armisen used to be a couple, and Matt and Fred Armisen know each other. Fred Armisen was on Toast to Tinseltown. Yeah, he was one of the main characters. Matt was on Portlandia well before that. So we knew that they had some sort of a relationship, and I assumed that he knew Natasha Lyonne because of that, but he said that they worked together. I'm not really sure what they worked on, so that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I didn't know that she and Fred Armisen were a couple. It's news to me, but a year or so ago, there was a photo of them together at a charity event in London, so yeah, definitely friends at the very least. Matt spoke to this song a bit in the same Excess Noise interview that we've quoted a few times. He said, there isn't anyone else who sounds like Natasha in the world. She just totally transformed the song that I already had recorded and ready to go. Totally agree with that. Love it or hate it, she has a very distinctive voice. And I think it is really the most interesting thing about this song.
Enter as I came. I came as I entered. I fool no one, nor wish to be fooled. I am my one, my only, and my always. My one, my only, and my always.
The lyrics lyrics are very simple, but there is one word that I cannot make out and it bugs me. It's, I enter as I came as I enter, I fool no one, nor wish to be fooled. I am my one, my only, and my life?
Always.
Oh,
I'm my one, my only, and my always. Yeah.
Thank you. And then they repeat it, my one, my only, and my always. Thank you. That was driving me crazy. I'm like, what is she saying?
I'm so bad at catching lyrics, so whenever I get one, I just feel pretty pleased with myself.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That was really bugging me.
Musically, kind of like Be Alarmed, I think this is a sketch. Consists really of these washes of synth, piano. There's chimes that come in at 1:15, which honestly sound a little busy to me. I'm not sure it needs it there. Lyrically, it's pretty straightforward. Her just kind of repeating a few lines that almost sound like an incantation to my ears.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that when Matt spoke about the theme of the supernatural that he had mentioned on the Steve Martin show, I think that shows up in ways that probably make sense mostly to him. But in this song, this track, I think it jumps out a little more. You know, he talked during the recording of Witch Hazel. His famous quote is that it's about the horrors of the countryside. This song is not overtly about the horrors of the countryside, but it just brought that to mind, that sense of a spirit or something beyond our understanding. A lot of that has to do with her voice. And I think that it works because her voice adds a note of discordance. The obvious choice for this song would be to use kind of a light, ethereal voice, you know, maybe something like Cecilia Phage. That would be pretty, but this sounds earthy. It sounds a little salacious even. It lends that note of discordance that makes it interesting. That all said, I don't love this song for the same reasons I don't love Be Alarmed. It's a sketch. It's a little meandering, but I like that it's there. I don't like it, but I appreciate it.
Personally, I really like the music itself on this one. You know, it's kind of a little unconventional, a little bit trippy, a little bit of a funky ride. I like it. I like the actual, you know, music, but then her spoken part really throws me. And I love Natasha. I've been a fan of hers. I watch a lot of her stuff. I really like her. So I was very tickled pink that they know each other and like they worked on something together. And then I do think that they might have worked on something. It just hasn't come out yet because some things can get just stuck in production hell. So yeah, I'm interested to see that. But I was really excited when I heard that they did it. And then it's just a bit of a performance and it's not really anything special. I think that the spoken part actually takes away from the music, and I think I would have enjoyed it more without her on top of it.
When I heard she was going to be on this album, I was really confused because I'm like, does she sing? I don't think she sings.
Mm-hmm.
What would she possibly do? So when I heard it was a monologue by her, I was actually, you know, given the first single I didn't love, the second single confused by, and then I heard that it was a monologue. So I was like automatically like, alarm, why is she on this album? And then when I found out it was a monologue, I was very relieved because she does have that husky New York accent and it's one of a kind. Her voice is very recognizable. So
yeah.
So we didn't mention she also recorded a promo for this album.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was like an Instagram story or maybe a reel that Acid Jazz posted, just, you know, kind of saying this album's coming soon, but they didn't officially credit her. You kind of had to take a guess, but it wasn't a hard guess. Her voice is unmistakable.
Yeah, I was a little puzzled by that, but so the beginning, it's like a real slow build. It just adds one element, one instrument at a time, which is really cool. Big dig at that layering sound. It's very reminiscent to me of the beginning of Her Just Ridge by Mike Oldfield. He always credits Tubular Bells as something that's very influential to him. I personally like Her Just Ridge a lot better, probably because it's not as terrifying. Same. But you hear the glockenspiel or the xylophone, which is what I think sounds like the bells and the chimes. It also, with that, has that throwback vibe to me of Witch Hazel. It's very earthy, very natural sounding. Natasha Lyonne's voice is the only voice on the track. This whole thing is such a vibe, really. It has a little bit of a Moody Blues feel to it. They always do that heavy production and then sometimes they have a monologue in the middle. The first time I heard it, my first listen, it made me picture beanbag chairs, hookah pipes, hippies, beaded curtains, lava lamps. This I think he did such a good job nailing that 60s vibe without going over the top with it. It just feels like authentic to the time. It doesn't feel like a reproduction to me. I know he uses a lot of period specific instruments, but there's still a lot of modern technology to it. He still has to mix everything on his computer, and then he puts it back onto cassette or reel or however he does it to give it that more authentic sound. But it just sounds authentic. He does such a good job with it. It's also, to my ear, very reminiscent of the introduction from Opium, except for this one is serious. Like, he knows how to do it now. It doesn't sound hokey. It doesn't sound cheesy. It just sounds really relaxed and earthy and spiritual. And when he mentioned that this album had so many supernatural vibes, I was wondering if he meant spiritual, not supernatural, or if he himself uses those two phrases interchangeably, because I don't actually hear anything supernatural on this, but it's very spiritual. And I'm kind of wondering if that's what he meant. There is a reverse track on this, but I can't make anything out. It might just be her talking and it's just reversed, but I can't make out any specific words or anything. It's definitely, there's a reverse element to it, but I think it's just the same, and it's just kind of washed out and flipped backwards, and you can't. I can't make anything out. Okay, what do we give this one?
You know, you're kind of selling this to me. I was going to go with maybe 2.5. Maybe I'll bump it up to a 3. You kind of make some good points about how it fits. It's funny, I don't really hear the 60s vibe as much, but it's a little eerie. It's a little bit of an intermission on this album. Not something I'll go back to a lot, I don't think, but it's cool that it's there.
I agree with that. I can't give it a 3, but I would give it like a 2.5.
I actually really like this one. It's like a whole vibe. Like, this is a whole vibe wrapped up in one song. Like, my mom always told me that I was born in the wrong decade. Like, I should have been a 60s flower child. Because that's just how I've always just been a fan of that generation and everything that goes with it. And to me, this is just works so well. Yeah, I give this a 4.
We should note that Jesse is wearing a shirt with a peace sign on it right now.
I am.
And I'm wearing a shirt with a picture of Matt. Okay, we talked a lot already about the sequencing of this album and how it kind of jumps around, and I don't think there's a more overt example of that than There Are Monsters.
This one just jumps in at full volume. It is jolting. It jolts you right out of that trippy 60s OPM den feel to right into this one, and it just starts full volume, clapping, lots and lots of fantastic organ riffs, super reminiscent of the Doors. There's soaring electric guitar, back to organ. The vocals come in about halfway through. He says, "I know there is silence. You know there are monsters. She knows there are demons. They know there is Jesus. I know they know you that you know. They know we know that she knows. She knows you know that we know. You know I know that we know. He knows they know that I know. I know they know that you know." So yeah, make of that what you will.
Oh God.
I've got thoughts.
To me, the vocals are like actually distracting because I was super into the music before the vocals like just abruptly started. So, and they don't make any sense. Maybe this is part of the supernatural. There's a little riff towards the end that the first time I heard it, it sounded like Windy by The Association. I just hear that everyone knows it's windy, like little bloop. Yeah, musically, this song is aces. I think it's fantastic. It didn't need vocals. It didn't need lyrics. I don't think it adds anything to it. I do like his voice on this one, though. It's really low and rumbly and a little ominous.
It's a little reverby. Is that?
Yeah.
I know there is silence. You know there are monsters. We know there are demons. They know there is Jesus.
I 100% agree with you. I really love the first half of this song. You know, good bass line, the drums, like it sounds so good. It's a little bit funky, a little bit jazzy. And then the lyrics come in and I'm like, oh no. It throws me off, and I've listened to it again over and over again, and I wish that he had just left it instrumental.
No, hard agree on that one. First of all, I'm just going to say this song, to me at least, is like nothing he's done before. It's got this heavy, you heard Windy, I just heard this garage rock influence, and I love old 60s garage rock. Like when I first heard the Nuggets box set, it was like a whole world opened for me. It sounds like that. The closest comparison, I think, in his discography is Solo, but it's less derivative than that. It's completely his own take on the genre. It just blasts off, and at 6 seconds, adds these hand claps. I love the hand claps. They add propulsion, but they're not overused. It leaves you wanting more a little bit. It segs into the jazzy instrumental, this jazzy piano solo. You get a guitar solo at 125. The guitar zigzags. You're not expecting it. It hits some, I wrote blue notes. I'm not a music theorist. I might be using that wrong, but I think those are blue notes where it kind of just hits off. Some slightly sour notes, that you're not expecting. Mm-hmm. It works so well. And the lyrics, first of all, I love the vocals. I think the vocals make the song. I don't think they're nonsense. I think this is kind of a continuation of Stay on the Ground. Obviously, we had some differing takes on that song, but from my take, it's just a rejection of societal norms, social norms, maybe religion, there is Jesus. It's the things that we all know that no one says, that no one kind of wants to say out loud. But there's this joyous feel in saying the unspoken and the taboo. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Wouldn't be the first time. But to me, this is, again, about freedom and just the freedom to kind of think for yourself, say what you want to say, call out the elephant in the room.
Yeah, I can see that it could be, your interpretation of Stay on the Ground, how the themes would be similar. I didn't make much sense of it.
I hear freedom. I hear freedom in the music. I hear freedom in the lyrics. I hear freedom in his vocals. I keep saying joyous, but that's the word that keeps coming to mind. He sounds like he's having so much fun, and I love that.
Yeah, this one, he definitely sounds like he was super into it. He really enjoyed recording it, and the music, though, is so good on this one. For the music alone, I would give it 4 stars.
This is a 5-star song for me. Just perfect.
I'm gonna give it a 2. If it was just the music, I would honestly give it a 5. I really, really love the first half, and I know going forward, I'm gonna listen to the first half, and then I'm gonna skip it.
I wouldn't skip it. I don't necessarily think that the lyrics bring anything to it. I do very much like his vocals on it. I don't think it adds anything to it. I think I just like the music so much that I would have liked to have just heard the music. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I don't think the lyrics diminish it necessarily. So, yeah.
I know that this album is recorded as a cohesive whole, and I have listened to it as a whole, start to finish, quite a few times. But I'll confess, there's a few songs I keep going back to out of order, and this is one of them. One of the songs that I don't keep going back to is To Live for What Once Was. You see what I did there?
Nice, yeah.
Moving up and down and back to where I've been. No matter what I do, I'm trapped like a man in a jail of his own. Everything I want is old, inspired by then. Everything I feel is false, like a lie, like a younger man's own.
This song feels like it was written around the lyrics, not the other way around. Doesn't quite come together. It doesn't quite cohese for me. You know, I want to like it. He mentions freedom so many times on this album, and it carries forward that theme, free but not free, wanting to move forward and not being trapped by the past, which is pretty front and center in the lyrics. There's this theme of nostalgia that really, I think, recurs in the album. We'll talk about Canada Dry in a minute, which is about looking back fondly, but this song is about getting stuck in the past. I would say Wedding Photo Stranger is too. But, you know, the vocals just feel a little flat. They're a little less expressive compared to the rest of the album. Okay, you know I hate a forced rhyme, and in the pub and everything that I do, it doesn't rhyme. It does not rhyme. It feels forced. The hand claps at 2 minutes, 18 seconds are kind of cool, but it just doesn't really achieve liftoff for me. I'm sure this was probably written before his 50th birthday, but inspired by his birthday looming. And, you know, I appreciate how meaningful it probably felt to him, but musically it's just not landing for me.
I said the same thing, that this is definitely lyric driven. Speaking of the lyrics, I mean, they're pretty clear. Moving up and down and back to where I've been. No matter what I do, I'm trapped like a man in a jail of his own. Everything is old, inspired by them. Everything I feel is false, like a lie, like a younger man's own, I think is what he says. I couldn't make out the last word. And then he says free but not free, free but not free. That's the chorus. And then it goes to stop me looking back to live for what once was. Get me on my own and I'll prove that I'm a changed man ready to roll. I see my younger self in front, behind, above. I see him in the street, in the pub, everything, all that I do. So this is the second track that has Eric B. Johnson on acoustic guitar, auto harp, and backing vocals. And also Phil Scraggs is on this playing lap steel guitar. There's another really great organ piece toward the end, but musically that's pretty much all I have as a standout. I think this would have worked really, really well on the small hours, actually, because it's kind of similar themes. He sounds like he's stuck in a cycle and he doesn't know how to break it. It's almost like he has the freedom and independence that he can do whatever he wants, but he has obligations that he has to uphold, and therefore he's not free after all. The lyrics seem really nostalgic and sentimental. He's possibly regretful, like he wishes he could do things differently, or maybe even have lived in a different time, or maybe had given advice to his younger self.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's a very nostalgic song, and I love that kind of thing. I don't know if it's just because, like, I'm approaching my 40s and, you know, you start looking back at things. This song makes me feel really intensely introspective, and I love it. I think it's one of his finer songs that are, you know, evoking certain feelings, and I love that it's lyrically driven. That's obviously something that has always been a big thing with me, so I think it's like a perfect little song, and I can't help but feel a little bit sad, and I think the title really works. Yeah, I think we've all been there, just looking back on yourself and could I have done things differently, and just feeling very tied to the past, but you're not anymore, and you kind of should let go, but it's hard to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting given that he's lived the last 20 years, give or take, in the public eye and everything that entails. It's just interesting to kind of view the lyrics through that lens of what you would do differently, maybe how you would present yourself differently. I think we'll touch on that a little more. Yeah, it's cool lyrically. I wish the music just propelled a little more.
All right, so what do we give this one?
2 out of 5 from me. No, 2.5. I'll be generous. I think I would like it more on an earlier album. I think I would like it more on The Small Hours or even Phantom Birds. Here it just feels like a little bit of throwback and not in a way that I love.
I would give it 3.5. I like it. I don't love it. I think most of what I like about it is the sentiment. I like the sentiment. I like that he's nostalgic, because you don't get that very often. And this one, it's just out in the open that he's looking back and being nostalgic. And I like that. It's a different side of him, I think.
I love it, and it is amazing. And it gets 4.75 out of 5.
All right. Moving on to Canada Dry. Another really fantastic example of how this goes from kind of a meandering and wistful song onto just something that is absolutely so joyous.
Cancel the show, I'm ready to go. A hell of a time, thanks for the ride. Classic to be, acidic for free. Your filter queen, the sonic boom dream. Raccoons above, the bovine sex club. Spadina to blow, across the lake shore. The ceiling's too high, I drank Canada dry. I drank Canada dry.
This song is not so subtly at all about his time in Canada and What We Do in the Shadows ending. The first time I listened to it, I heard he drank Canada dry, and I was like, well, he had a hell of a time in Toronto, and he just, literally drank his way through it. And then, on later listens, when you start to understand the lyrics and stuff like that, you can tell what he's talking about. There is a bunch of stuff on here that we weren't sure about. I think we finally figured out. He says, cancel the show, I'm ready to go. A hell of a time, thanks for the ride. Traffic's a B, a city for free. I think from there, traffic's a B is in like traffic's a bitch.
It is.
I think
Drawn
that's
as
what
bad.
he's saying. This line we're
Although
not sure.
he doesn't drive.
But
Why
he's
does
stuck
he
in
care?
traffic because he's in a car.
Yeah.
Because they take him to and from. I think he's got a car that takes him to and from the set.
Yeah.
And then this one we are not clear of, and we have debated. It says. I think he's referencing street names. Queen Street is a street in Toronto. I think he's saying a street name to Queen. And then he says a Sonic Boom dream. And Sonic Boom is a record store in Toronto. And we know that he frequented a lot of record stores in Toronto. So maybe that was his favorite. But Courtney, you had a different take on that lyric.
Yeah, I heard your boots are clean before Sonic Boom Dream. I could be totally off base on that, but the best I can make of what that means is, London's sort of filthy, like similar to New York. You walk around London and your shoes are going to get dirty. And maybe that's not the case with Toronto. Maybe that's a little novel to him. Your boots stay clean. It's Canadian.
Yeah. But I think Tara and I both heard, we think it's a street. Tara, you heard maybe York to Queen.
I think he's saying York through to Queen.
York through to Queen, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he goes on to say raccoons above, the Bovine Sex Club. And the Bovine Sex Club is like a big famous music venue in Toronto. And then Tara really saved the day on this one because I was absolutely clueless, but she nailed it. Yeah, this one is Spadina and Bloor across the lakeshore. Spadina and Bloor are both streets in Toronto. I was like, as soon as she said it, I was like, oh, that's definitely what it is.
Yeah.
And then it says, the ceiling's too high. I drank Canada dry. And he repeats. And then agents in town wearing her I hear crown.
I hear crown.
Okay.
I hear frown. I'm going to put money on frown.
I know who his agent is, and she seems very lovely, and I've never seen anything with a frown on her face, so I'm going to say it's crown.
I see crown just because in his mind, she's kind of a queen. They, from what we can see, been very close friends for a long time, for well over a decade now. And she was also his +1 to the Emmys. She's someone he really looks up to.
Yeah, that's how I see it too. Okay, so this line, there is a lot of speculation because we cannot make it out. So, dinner for 3, we have landed on Cosmic EP.
Yeah.
And Cosmic Charlie's is a marijuana dispensary in Toronto. And they may or may not have one time sold mushrooms. EP could be a reference to Eddie Pillar, who is the Acid Jazz founder. I believe at one point when Eddie was in Toronto visiting Matt, they did possibly experiment with some mushrooms. I think we may have heard that on the radio. I don't know the details. So I kind of doubt, I don't know. I can't say I kind of doubt that that's a lyric, but from now on, it's going to be Cosmic EP because I love it. I don't know what he's really saying. If you can make something out in that, please let us know because it's driving us crazy.
It is.
And that's true for every lyric on this album. I'm just gonna say that if you have a more accurate take or a different take,
right,
shoot us a message, put it on social. We'll crowdsource this. We'll get there.
Yeah. seriously, Matt, if you're listening, can you send us a lyric sheet? Maybe.
Please.
That would be really great.
We're going crazy about it.
Right. And then it goes on, hanging from wires, fancy room fires, which I heard that line the first time I heard it, and I got so excited because the fancy room is one of the rooms within the What We Do in the Shadows set. And I'm just picturing them in there with the fire blazing, and it's like so cozy. And I'm like, oh, I love that. That was such a great image.
I thought that was a reference to the fire that broke out on filming there. So Yana Gorskaya, who's one of the writers and I think producers of Shadows, posted like a cute little clip of her and Matt dancing to Burning Down the House by the Talking Heads.
Yeah.
I think Natasha Demetrio was in there too. And she said in the caption that there was actually a fire on set and that it was no big deal, but that was the aftermath, them just having fun with it. I thought it was about that.
That could be. I didn't even think. I totally forgot about that.
Oh, I didn't, because it plays on loop in my head.
That's so funny.
Matt is not what I'd call a good dancer, but he is an enthusiastic dancer.
I love it.
Funny. And then going above to that part where he talks about raccoons above, there was raccoons featured on the show. I'm assuming that's what he's referencing there. And then lastly, it says, no one gets pissed, but here is the twist. And then it repeats, I Drank Canada Dry again.
Agents in town, wearing a frown. Dinner for three, cosmic ED. Hanging from wires, fancy room fires. No one gets pissed, but here is the twist. I drank Canada Dry. I drank Canada Dry.
This one, y'all, this is such an earworm. This could possibly be one of his most earwormy songs ever. I absolutely cannot get enough of it. I think it's just pure joy. It's like a musical scrapbook from his time in Toronto. It's just upbeat. It's joyous. I love everything about it. The music perfectly accompanies the lyrics and they balance each other out so well. It's just flawless. It's such a well-rounded and polished tune. It's one of my favorite songs of his to date. And I did not expect to be saying that about a song called Canada Dry.
No, me neither. And I 100% agree with that assessment. Musically, it kind of goes back to that garage rock influence, maybe not quite as much as There Are Monsters, but it's there and that's new for him and I like it for him. It works better than I ever would have expected. I'm going to use the word joyous again. These are his most joyous vocals that he's ever put to tape. He just sounds so elated talking about these experiences he had in Canada. And it is nostalgic, but it's forward-looking. He says, hell of a time, thanks for the ride, but he's ready to go. It's not like To Live for Once Was, where he gets stuck in the past or is trying not to get stuck in the past. He is able to take the experience and just kind of cherish it, but move forward. Something that was kind of a late piece of info that really added a whole layer of meaning to the song is the Times interview I think we mentioned at the beginning of the show, where it was just an aside. It mentioned that he gave up drinking about 4 years ago. Didn't say more than that. Don't know the details, but sobriety has come up pretty consistently in his previous song lyrics. In One by One, he says, someday I'll be sober. He mentions it on Waving Goodbye and Phantom Birds.
He mentioned it in I Got a Limit on this one.
I Got a Limit, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which, again, I think he's playing a character, but that's up for debate. So once that bit of info came out, to me, the song took on a whole new context. He had this fantastic, memorable time, grew from the experience, but the whole time he was drinking Canada Dry. You know, he was, at least after the first year of the show, because it's been about 5 years, he was sober. He was kind of learning to just appreciate experiences without being drunk. And the joy came from the people and experiences that he got to know. So when he says no one gets pissed, but here's the twist, it's a cute, catchy line, but, you know, it is a twist for him. No one was partying too hard. No one was drunk. And yet he drank in the experience. Great little pun. One thing I want to note, and I think it's kind of a funny line, but it also does tie back to that theme. He says, the ceiling's too high. I drank Canada Dry. He has talked a lot in many interviews about his fear of heights. He's, you know, always kind of joked about that, talked about how he hated doing the wire work on Shadows. He mentions that in this song too, because he does hate heights. I'm assuming that's what Ceiling's Too High about. But around the time the show wrapped, a lot of the talent involved were posting photos of their time on Instagram, like you would expect. And there was a photo of him at the CN Tower with Anthony Atumanu. Sorry, Anthony, if I'm mangling that. Who played Sean on the show. They became good friends. So I saw that and I'm like, at the CN Tower? At some point he got over this fear. I'm sure for him that was a big deal.
He did not look happy to be there.
I thought he did. I thought he looked
I thought
like he
he
was
looked
having
very
fun.
nervous.
Well, he went there. He overcame it.
Yeah.
He did it.
Yeah. I think it's just a big deal for him, as private as he is, that he even put that out there, that he's not drinking now. And this feels like sort of a fun little song, but I don't think it's that for him. I think it goes deeper.
Yeah, that's a very, very good deep dive into it. When we first got the track list and I saw Canada Dry, I was so curious. What is it about? Does it have nothing to do with Canada? Is it just about the drink? Because I looked it up. They do have Canada Dry in the UK. So I was like, okay. So I was looking forward to it. I was very much excited to hear this song specifically.
As our resident Canadian.
Yes. And I had just been to Toronto not that long ago, about a month or two ago. And I didn't skip ahead. I listened to the whole album. And when it came on, oh my God. I'm listening and I'm like, he's singing about Toronto. He's singing about Toronto. And I was just so excited because it was always cool that, because again, I've been obsessed with him for years and following his career. And for him to actually be filming such a major show and it played a major part in his life for so long. And for that to be so close to where I live and to be so familiar with everything, it was really amazing to me. And to be able to catch stuff and like, oh my God, yeah, like I know what he's talking about. This song is, oh my God, it is definitely the best song on the album. And I completely agree with you guys. It is one of his best songs. It's probably going to be one of my top 5. It's awesome. It's so great. And you know what? I have been obsessed for a long time with the idea of I need to hear Matt Berry on the radio, because I've never heard him on the radio here. And I think this is a perfect song that I can start bothering the CBC radio stations and being like, play Canada Dry by Matt Berry.
That's a really great idea. Because I could picture this one being played on the radio.
Yeah, it's catchy and it's fun. And yeah, I think it's really interesting too, because you can't listen to this song and not think that there's a double meaning of drinking Canada Dry of its booze. So I think like the play on words of that and the play kind of on intention of that is really interesting. And then I don't know if you guys notice this or if it's me making stuff up, but there's like a little Easter egg at 1 minute and 40 seconds where there's this little riff, and it is straight from Medicine.
I did hear that.
I didn't catch that. I'll have to listen.
Yeah, and that's not here nor there, but I just love it when he uses stuff from like past things and like here's a little
may
Easter
have not
egg,
been
guys.
intentional, but yeah, I heard that
It might
too.
not have been.
Just like everything else, and it just like that little tiny thing will spark your ears will perk up and you'll be like, wait, why does that sound familiar? And you're like, oh, that's why.
I've heard that somewhere.
The other song like this that he did was Take a Bow on Phantom Birds, and just I don't think there's any comparison. Like, I loved that. That was a love letter to all the things that he loved, but this is just like in your face. I had a great time in Canada, and he said how much he enjoyed his time in Canada, and this is like,
he thanks it in the album credits. He thanks the city of Toronto.
Yep. So I don't know, we might all agree on this one, but maybe not. So what do we think?
Should we say it together, or is that jinxing it?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. 5 stars.
5.
We didn't do it at the same time, but we were almost there.
Well, we're not in the same place, and we have a little bit of a delay sometimes.
There's a little lag.
I think it was close enough. I was actually going to give it like a 27 out of 5, but we'll just stick to like 5 stars and make it.
I wrote down 10 out of 5. I was definitely going to give it. Yeah. All right. How do we even move on from that?
Okay. Leading from Canada Dry, a perfect song, into The Snakes Will Slide. I kind of have a feeling this one might be a little controversial between us. This was the song that while writing my notes for this album, I had to listen back to the most. And that was because it just kind of wouldn't stick in my mind. It feels like an album track for sure. It feels a little tacked on. It doesn't feel that memorable for me. With all that said, there are some interesting things going on. So this is one where Phil Scragg plays lap steel guitar, and that sets a wistful tone. It's really quite beautiful, and I think it's the best thing about the song. The last 80 seconds get really interesting. There's some synths pounding drums. There's times are around 15 seconds, 146 to 2 minutes, and I think those are too busy. I don't think they're really necessary. Something that I heard right away, and I'm pretty sure this is right, this is just in my head, but I love REM. This sounded to me like REM in the melody and especially in the vocals. Matt's never mentioned REM. I doubt that's an overt influence, but he sounded so much like Michael Stipe to me that I kind of have to put it out there. And, you know, I think that this is another one like To Live for Once Was that was written around the lyrics, not the other way around. The lyrics come back to that theme of freedom versus paralysis, let me be free, unannounced and always there. I think it's about rising above negativity, going back to that theme of thinking critically, being a free thinker. He says, switch it up, be nice, be kind. So whether he's singing about social media, whether he's singing about organized religion, whether he's singing about something else entirely, it's about kind of rising above it, thinking for yourself. At the end of the day, I just find this song a little clunky. It doesn't quite flow for me in the way his best music does. Could be a B-side, but it's not offensive to me there. It's just kind of there.
It technically is a B-side.
Thanks, Jesse.
Weighs me down, it weighs me down. Poison thoughts run through my mind. Stars align and church bells chime. An eerie, dark and dreadful sound. Let me be free. Unannounced and always there. Go to ground to block the sound. You're up, you're down, you're everywhere. The snakes will start to lay in hell. I need to fly out of the well. The field is blue, the church is black.
I don't have much to say about this. I like it. I think, you know, it's a little bit dark, but I find it catchy, and I think it's going to be one of the songs that I end up playing a lot. Maybe not a favorite, but no, I think it's a good little song. I don't know what the hell The Snakes Will Slide means. I'm very interested because I think Jesse might have a theory, but I'm intrigued by it. Like, I want to know more. I want to know where he came up with it. And then I just wanted to say too, the guitar at the end, it's freaking awesome.
Oh,
there's
yeah,
just like a really good riff, and I was like, is that Matt? Because Matt is
it's
like
electric.
doing so good. But
Kind of a vamp.
My first listen to this, I had absolutely zero thoughts. It was a lot to take in, and I needed to go back and listen to it and pay more attention because it's a lyric driven song and I couldn't make a lot of sense out of it. The lyrics are, wears me down, it wears me down, poison thoughts run through my mind, stars align and church bells chime, an eerie, dark and dreadful sound. Let me be free, unannounced and always there. Go to ground to block the sound. You're up, you're down, you're everywhere. And then the chorus is, the snakes will slide to rain and hell. This line I was not fully clear on. I think he's saying, I need to fly. I wrote the will. I don't know if you guys have other thoughts.
I want to say I always will, but
the other thing I thought,
for sure.
I thought it was either I need to cry or I need to
I have
think it's
written
I need to
down
fly.
garbled, so I
Garbled.
clearly couldn't figure it out. Yeah.
unsure. And then he said, the field is blue, the church is black. He says, wears me down. It wears me down. Poison fear runs through my mind. A waste of time, a waste of time. Switch it up. Be nice, be kind. Reset my mind. And then I can't tell if he says, don't take my hand. That was the other line I wasn't sure about.
I wanted to bring that up. I heard take my hand. It could have been head. I couldn't quite discern it.
Okay.
But if it is take my hand, obviously that's a little bit of an Easter egg, a little bit of a reference to his most famous song. And, you know, I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
But
And then the
it's
chorus
interesting.
repeats. The lyrics are a little bit hard to interpret. I think it's the subject of the album is so similar to the Small Hours, with a heavier emphasis on feeling trapped. Like outside forces are impacting him and he can't escape the negativity in his mind. And, you know, feelings of being trapped in a negative cycle without having control of your life, I think is kind of the overarching theme of this. The song itself starts off, my first thought was it was going to be sort of a love song. And then it goes into the lyrics, and then the ending is just like classic prog, and it's a bit on the heavy side. So yeah, that ending guitar riff is really great. It's so weird, like it's almost like two separate songs. Like it starts off one way and then ends completely different. And it's interesting in that way. I mean, I can't say it doesn't work because I really like it, but it threw me off. I can tell you that. I would give this one, I give it 4 stars. I think his voice is really lovely on this. I actually really like the lyrics on it. I think it's really well written. Sounds like poetry. The Snakes Will Slide part, I don't know if, I think that's the part that's kind of like the outside forces, whether it be negativity, negative reviews, things that just are negative that impact him. People that are pressing on him in negative ways. And he can't stop it.
Okay. Yeah. I don't even have a guess. I don't have a guess as to what he's saying. So like what he means. So that's,
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I had said, I think he's talking about rising above negativity, and I think that fits. I think we're on the same track. For me, I'm struggling a little, but I think, if I'm being honest, this is like a 2.25.
Wow.
I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just kind of there, and it's kind of forgettable, and Matt's music is rarely forgettable, but this is a skip track for me.
I definitely, like, I'm singing it in my head right now. I really like it. I would give it a 4.25 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree. I really like this a lot. So, okay. Well, close, not close. I don't know. That takes us into interlude 2. To say about this one, I really love it. It has a little bit of the late 70s, early 80s soft rock, yacht rock type feel, a little bit of the classic doobie bounce. I wish it wasn't just an interlude. I would have liked to hear a lot more of this.
100%.
I'd agree with that. It's funny. I like this a lot too, but I had a totally different take. To me, it sounds like the opposite of yacht rock. It sounds really funky. It sounds like the opening of a 70s soul song. We know that's something that Matt likes a lot. He likes classic soul. We talked about his love of Northern soul. So if that's something you hear, I think that's probably Eddie Pillar's influence in a pretty straightforward way. We know that's something that Eddie loves and plays quite a bit on some of the radio shows he hosts. And, there's not a whole lot to say about it because it is so brief, but it's a cool direction for him to go in, and one I wish he had played around with more.
Yeah, dead on. That's exactly, I love that we are all in agreement with this short little song. It should have been made into something longer and kind of filled out. So maybe one day he will.
Right.
Hopefully. Please, Matt.
Knowing Matt, we might hear this again sometime.
I would love that. No,
in a
I
longer
really,
format.
And it's just like a little short little interlude, but like it's like 4.5 out of 5. I really love it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would give it too. Probably the same.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our last song on the album.
On the album proper.
Yes, not on the CD exclusive, which we will get to, but just on the actual, releases that are not that exclusive one. Sky High. This song a little bit because at the beginning it sounds awesome. I'm like, oh, like this song sounds kick-ass. And then he starts with the I love you and the repetition of the I love you. And I'm like, oh God, like that's not very good. And when I heard this song the first time, I just played the whole thing. And I thought that this was kind of like an intro kind of on its own song. And then another song started because after the I love you part, it abruptly transitions into like something super cool. The next part of the song, it is, I'm going to say kick-ass. I don't know how else to describe it. It's rocking. And I personally think think that the beginning of the song should have been left off or just left to something else, because it's not terrible. It's just
different.
It doesn't fit in. And it it just kind of throws me off, because the whole thing, it is a perfect last song to the album. It is high energy. It is really cool. The whole song is taking you kind of on a journey. There's a lot of different things you can pinpoint in there and cut into parts. You could literally make a soundtrack out of this song to a whole movie. There's just so much going on, and love it, love it, love it. Just the beginning throws me off. It really does.
The beginning part, I love you, it's true, I love you, I do, I love you, it's true, I love you. And then the second part, who the fuck knows? Mentions my name, I think. No one noticed me go. And then in the background, it's saying up through the wind. It was a while, so I left alone. And now you ask me my name before you, and then the rest of it I cannot make out whatsoever. The first part is a little reminiscent of the Beatles to me. The guest artist on this, Rosie McDermott, is on backing vocals, and then Dominic Glover plays trumpets and trombone. Andrew Ross is on sax, and Ben Castle does a sax solo. The lyrics are a bit hard to understand. There's a little nugget in the beginning that reminds me. I was like, oh, is that ABBA? And it sounds like the very beginning of Waterloo. Did you hear that?
Yes. Oh my God.
Funny.
I didn't want to say it because I was like, I listened to them back and forth and I was like, no, it's not super familiar.
No, it is.
I did.
It totally is. So the organ is front and center on this. It is highly reminiscent of the Doors, and I absolutely love that because I'm a huge fan of the Doors. I can't figure out these lyrics. I can't figure out most of what he's saying, but you know what? It doesn't matter because this is so fucking good. It hurts my feelings. After the I love you part, the music just completely shifts, and it's just this soaring 60s anthem. And the ending of it just seamlessly transitions into a jazz groove with Ben Castle's sax solo. And then it just ends in a crescendo. And it's just the perfect ending to any album, really. But specifically this one, it is so good. It's a tale of two different songs in one. And it shouldn't work, but somehow it works.
Okay, guys, I'm actually a little disappointed because I was so ready to argue my case for this song and so ready to go to bat for it.
And you don't have to.
I was spoiling for a fight. So
sorry to disappoint you. You can still fight if you want to. Try to convince us more how much you love it.
Oh, on it. Okay. This is a total Frankenstein's monster of a song. And Tara, I 100% agree with your take. I'll even take it further. I think the first minute, the I Love You segment, is the worst stretch of the album. It's way too simplistic. It's cloying. And then the remainder of the song, the 4-ish minutes that come next, is, I think, the single strongest stretch of the album. And it might be my favorite thing that Matt has ever done.
Wow.
This, if you shave off that first minute, this is my new favorite Matt Berry song. Sorry, Life Unknown, you've been usurped. So
no, they can't be. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna argue against it. No, I disagree. Just kidding. I don't.
This, when you hear a song that's so good and such a step forward for an artist that you actually feel proud of them, you actually feel like you're welling up with just pride and excitement. this is how this song makes me feel. The vocals, even though there's not a lot of vocals on this song, that stretch where he is singing, and it's hard to decipher. I don't know all the words, but he's playing with tempo. He's elongating his syllables. He's kind of jumping around, syncopating a little. You know, his vocals haven't always been his strongest point. And I'm not like ragging on them, but he tends to sing on the beat, or always has before. And he's moved past that. He's not doing that anymore on a lot of tracks on this album, but it's most pronounced, it's most prominent here. There's this rippling synth line that's echoed by the guitar, and it serves the song. It's not synth for its own sake, which I think a few tracks on this album kind of veer into that. Everything here just works to create this groove. It's hypnotic. The sax and the horns are just a little dissonant, kind of groove on top of the beat in a way that I think creates a nice bookend to the reverse children's voices on Why on Fire. The hey is also mirrored by Why on Fire, and you know, that's something he's done since Witch Hazel. Like, he's liked to begin and end his albums with the same riffs or same melodies. Sorry, Matt, like, I played this song on loop more than anything else on the album, but I skipped past that first minute. I get what he was going for. I hear the Beatles comparison, but it just falls so flat. And then the rest of it just feels so vibrant and so alive.
I do disagree with that, with skipping over it, because I think it's needed. I think it has to be there for the song to take a different direction. And because the song takes a different direction is what makes it so interesting and so unique and so good. I think if that wasn't there, it would be not generic by any means, but it wouldn't be as special. It's hard to explain. Like, it wouldn't be a standout. It would just be a really good song. But with it there, and because it takes that turn, even though the beginning part isn't as great, I think it's needed to make the second part amazing. And I agree with what you said about his vocals. When you listen to Witch Hazel as to compared with this, you can hear his range change over time. It could be because he's older, but I think he
holds notes longer.
Yes, like I think he's really found his actual vocal range. I think when he started off, he was singing in a much higher register than was natural for him. Not that it was bad, but he doesn't sound like Stephen Toast or Laszlo, but he does have a deep voice. I know your singing voice and your speaking voice are not always the same, but I think he's singing now in a much more natural register. And I think that's why his vocals are so much better on his last few albums. Starting probably with, I would say on the live album is when you can really hear the difference. But then it transitions over to the small hours a little bit more. He's still at that lower register, not quite as low as what we hear now. And voices do change over time when you get older, but I don't think it's that. I think it's him finding his groove and finding where he needs to be vocally. And I think this is just fantastic.
I get what he was trying to do with the intro, and I think you're right about what he was trying to do. Doesn't land for me, but I'm glad it does for you. Well, I'm glad that it isn't as jarring for you.
Yeah, it is jarring though, but I think that's why I appreciate it, because it is jarring. And there's so many times on this album where things pop up that are jarring. And I think that was intentional. And I think that's part of what makes it so unique and just so enjoyable to listen to. It's interesting. Like, how often do you say music is interesting? It doesn't happen that often. And I think that's what makes it so great.
I want to know what all of our listeners think. So guys, let us know, what do you think specifically about this song? Do you think that the beginning is good and it fits in and it serves its purpose? Or do you think, like Courtney and I, that maybe it should have been left out? I'd love to know.
Yeah, love to know. Let us know.
No. The intro. He just needs an editor sometimes. He produces himself. It's understandable. But I think that is, Jesse, what you said is just a perfect note to end the album itself on. We'll still touch on the bonus tracks. I'm going to say this is a 4.75, and I'm only shaving off that 1/4 of a point because of the intro. This is like a whole new territory for him, a whole new domain, and I love it. I just love it.
I give it a solid 5. I feel like that's not even worthy of what it actually is.
You'd give it a 26 out of 5, really.
Yeah, I'd give it a 26 out of 5.
I cut off points as well because of the beginning. I give it a 4.5 out of 5 without the beginning part. it would have been a 5 for sure. It's awesome.
All right.
So there are 2 bonus tracks on the HMV exclusive CD, which is super unfortunate because I feel like these 2 songs deserve to be heard more than what's just on a bonus track for an outlet that doesn't ship to the US. So again, find yourself a British friend who has the CDs and either have them ship one to you or at least rip them so you can hear them. But the first bonus track is Snake Organ. It's instrumental with Haze and Hose. And my first thought was, are these the same Haze and Hose that are in the Dancing with the Stars theme? Because it sounds very familiar with that. I've not watched a single episode of Dancing with the Stars in the history of my life, but I know what the theme sounds like, and I know that he does the Haze and Hose. So I was wondering if this was the same. Such a jam. There's just so much going on, and it's like I actually wrote, there's so much going on, it's like fireworks in my ear holes. The organ is just completely on fire, and like I said before, I'm a huge fan of the Doors, and this is just such a treat. I think Ray Manzarek would be really impressed with this whole album. I think he would have really liked this. I think it's kind of, a lot of it is kind of like a nod to him, and I think he would have appreciated it.
Okay, I got the fight I'm looking for, because this leaves me totally dry. I'm glad this was left off the album. I think it would have ground things to a halt. And it's not bad per se. It's technically certainly virtuosic, but it feels monotonous. It has this high energy, but it doesn't really build. It just kind of starts loud and stays loud, and I think it would benefit from some contrast rather than just that unrelenting kind of volume. Do we think the title is a double entendre? Because I think it's a double entendre.
Maybe. Yeah, good. I did. I don't know.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot to say about this for once. I think it's kind of a genre workout. I think it sounds like a demo or a song fragment. It's a little overlong, and it's definitely a bonus track. I don't even know that it should have been a bonus track.
I agree that it's not as nuanced as everything else, and it is slightly redundant. I agree with that too, so I'm okay with it being a bonus track. I just wish it was a bonus track that more people would get to hear. I don't know if they'll eventually release it, but I think it's really cool. I bet they will.
I mean, the Beatmaker instrumental was supposed to be single exclusive, and that's on Spotify now, so I wouldn't write it off.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
So I don't know if I am just making stuff up at this point. I might be. I heard like aspects of Stay on the Ground, and I was kind of like, okay, so he took some parts of the melody and whatever, and he just like reworked it and did something completely different with it. And that's just kind of what I heard.
No, I agree with you. I heard some similarities between an earlier track too, but I couldn't really pinpoint which one it was. So it could have been that one.
I think so anyways. And I listened to them both and I was like, yeah. But at this point, we had been kind of cramming for a test listening to this album. So we were listening to it over and over, and I was like, maybe I'm just making that up. So I find it an interesting song. I don't think I'm super sad that this one specifically isn't going to be, getting a huge release. The next song I do have a different opinion on, but it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. All right.
Certainly exists.
It exists. It is a thing.
I'd give it 3.5 just because the organ takes center stage, and I think it's like a little love letter to the Doors.
Yeah, I give it a 3, 2.5, 3, whatever.
No, for me it's a 2. It just fades into the background really quickly.
Okay, fair enough. The second bonus track is Screaming Walls. For someone who claims to not be nostalgic or sentimental, this song is really just both of those things.
Like a hobbit seed, like a cherub's mouth, cross the tower bridge, fly the seagulls south, past the screaming wolves. I got no ring on me, doesn't matter 'cause I am my younger me. or be apart. Stay with me or break my heart. On a Snowsfield tour, past the Guinness side, there's a shop with no door, open day and night. Don't know what I'll do, don't know what I'll say. I wanna be with you, but I'd never say.
It feels like a snapshot of an earlier time in his life, like maybe he's reminiscing of what could have been. There's not a lot to this one. It's fairly simple. First I heard like a Harvard C, which doesn't really make sense. I think actually I consulted ChatGPT and I asked for adjectives for C that start with H. And this is actually one that was in the back of my mind that I thought he may be seeing. I think it's like a harboring C. And then like,
okay. Yeah.
Like a cherub's mouth, cross the tower bridge, fly the seagull south, past the screaming walls. I got no ring on me, doesn't matter 'cause I am a younger me. The chorus is stick around or be apart, stay with me or break my heart. And then the second verse is on a Snowsfield tour across the Guinness side. And Snowsfield and Guinness are neighboring sections of London. Lays a shop with no doors, open day and night. Don't know what I'll do, don't know what I'll say. I want to be with you, but I'd never say stick around or be apart, stay with me or break my heart. I do think like with the other one, it deserves to be heard more than what it's going to be. The other part I liked was at the end, there's a little bit of like a layered vocal, kind of like he's his own chorus, like how you mentioned earlier on this album, Tara. But yeah, it's fairly simple, straightforward.
I'd agree with a lot of that assessment. It has a strong sense of place. It actually reminded me of Take a Bow or Canada Dry in the sense that it references actual locations, actual places that are meaningful to him. The Shop with No Door. I don't know what that's a reference to, but it sounds pretty concrete. This song is very pretty. Those echoing backing vocals where he sings on top of the chorus, it's really lovely.
Stick around or be apart. Stay with me or break my heart.
Kind of takes your breath away a little bit. There's also rhymes that are clunky. You know, this is my pet peeve. He rhymes, I got no ring on me with I'm my younger me, and rhymes, I don't know what I'll say with I want to be with you, but I'll never say. You can't rhyme a word with a word. Doesn't work. So, you know, to me that sounds forced and kind of unfinished. Something that I noticed after a few listens that I thought was kind of cool is, you know, he's been outspoken of his love of synth history. We actually heard recently that he might be doing he is doing another KPM collaboration, which is going to be kind of focused around that. But the final synth solo combined with these drums, I don't know if they're a drum machine, but they sound a little like a drum machine. It gives this kind of 80s synth pop ballad feel. It sounds like it wouldn't be out of place on a playlist next to a song like Forever Young or Only You. But, you know, at the end of the day, it sounds like something that wouldn't be out of place on Phantom Birds with a few lyrical tweaks.
I agree.
That's not a bad thing. I love Phantom Birds, but it sounds like old Matt. And like I just kind of raved about, I think this album is a huge step forward for him, and I want to just see him keep moving forward. And, you know, the vocals, like I mentioned, he's kind of singing on the beat here. You know, I just want to keep seeing that growth. Doesn't feel like growth.
You've made a lot of good points, both of you. And my feeling of this song is I really enjoy it. You know, it's quite simple musically, and it's another one that's kind of lyric driven. And I personally was thinking that he left it out because he already kind of had done a little bit too much of the songs about nostalgic things. So this one, I do think it would fit really well on Phantom Birds. I'm kind of bummed that this won't be up on Spotify or on a vinyl. Like, I really wish that they would have put this on one of the vinyl releases, because then I would have had to buy that vinyl release, and I'm not buying a CD. It's not happening.
It would have made more sense to put one of these as the B-side to the actual single that came out, rather than something that wasn't even on this album.
Now, we did get the Kill the Wolf demos after 10 years, so give it a decade and you never know.
We'll see you here.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be talking about it, but like, remember back 10 years ago, it's finally out. No, I do enjoy this song. Like, I am sad that I will have the version of it. Thankfully, we were given the version of it. It was very kind, but I'm sad that nobody else does unless they have the exclusive.
Yes, thank you so much, our friend John, for getting those bonus tracks to us ASAP. So what do we give this one as far as stars go?
I give it a 4 out of 5. I really enjoy this kind of song from Matt.
3.
I was going to say 3.5.
The lyrics bug, but it is very pretty.
All right. So, final thoughts. I'll jump in and say, I think where the Blue Elephant was completely psychedelic and it almost sounded like generically retro, this music does not. He definitely pinpointed an exact period of time where he wanted to be, and that was the late 60s. He did a really great job making this whole album sound authentic to that time, which is not easy to do with, modern times. I think we can officially say at this point that he has his own sound. It's evolved so much since Witch Hazel and Kill the Wolf. He even, I think, I know he has even outdone the musicianship on the Blue Elephant, and I didn't think that was possible. But this album is so clean and so polished and so nuanced that I really think that it now makes the Blue Elephant sound clunky, and I didn't think that was a possibility. He switches genres so much, but he has his own fingerprint. Like, there is a specific sound that is tied to him that is completely intangible. But this album, I think, really captures everything he's done to date, with like little touches and flourishes of every album and every genre wrapped all into this one ultra superb listening experience. And I mentioned earlier that he's so good at the seamless transitions, and listening to this track by track the first time, I missed out on the full experience. So don't do that. Listen to this as a whole. Don't shuffle it. Listen to it start to finish and just experience it. It's going to lose all of its meaning if you put it on a shuffle mode. It wasn't designed to be listened to that way.
I have to say that I think that this is, out of all of his albums, this is the one that Matt might actually kind of break through into mainstream music with. He is the best artist that no one's ever heard of, and it breaks my heart when you talk about, I do a podcast or whatever, because I always want people to listen to Matt's music. And they've heard of him. In Canada, he's always been kind of, we follow a lot of British stuff, so he's not been unheard of totally, but nobody knows he does music. And I really think that this album is so good and so kind of universally good that it's going to appeal to a lot of people. And I really want that for him. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And I'm going to start bothering the local CBC radio stations and ask them why they are not playing this, because there are many songs on here that would fit for the different programs they have. So I'm going to make it happen. Let's make it happen collectively. Just start calling your kind of, radio stations, whatever you guys have in the States and Canada. It's the CBC is kind of independent, and start bothering them. Let's get him some play. He deserves it.
You both kind of took the words out of my mouth, so I'll try not to belabor my point for once. I think this is his best work yet. I think Simplicity is a little bit of a side project, a little bit of a one-off. So if you consider The Blue Elephant his last kind of fully conceived album, I love every song on The Blue Elephant. I don't love every song on this one, but I'm still going to call it his strongest work to date, because the stuff that doesn't work for me is still taking risks. Nothing on here isn't interesting. He's opening up lyrically more than he ever has before. His lyrics are more scrutable, but still make you think. I hope we've gotten that from the past few hours. His instrumentation, like you said, Jesse, is just untouchable. He's trying things he's never tried before. I'm not going to repeat myself. I just think this is a classic. I think it's truly a masterpiece. It makes me so excited to see what comes next. And, we love everything he does, but this, I think, just stands on its own.
Well said. So final stars for the entire album?
5.
5.
That's awesome.
This album was a really good lesson for me to trust the process, because I was scared. I was scared. I was scared when I heard those 2 singles, and I was like, what the fuck is he thinking? Trust the process. I need to remember that because he knows what he's doing, and this is a solid 5. I think it's bumped The Small Hours. I think this is my favorite. My favorite. And I've had so little time with it, and I think it's still my favorite. Yes.
It says a lot. It really says a lot. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been a very exciting episode for us. We were so glad to be able to do this. Please don't forget to follow us. We are Obsessed Obscure, and we are on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, and I really want you guys to come join us on Discord. We have a very active community, and it's always a good time. So please come and discuss this album and all his previous albums with us on our Discord.
We also wanted to thank Steve Furst and Martin Green for very generously allowing us to use excerpts from The Steve Martin Show on Soho Radio. Check out the show, and thank you, Steve and Martin.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Obsessed and so obscure. You and me and the BBC.